Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Keeping You Company, the podcast where Rukamani and I ramble on about topics that we find interesting to learn more about each other and the world around us, and also to keep you company at home. Hello, Aruk.
Hello, Scott Sword. Hello, everybody listening. Hoping to once again keep you company with this episode.
Absolutely. And we started off with such a, I don't know, with positive, I don't know, like vibes because we're able to start recording a little bit earlier. And then I suddenly realized, I don't think we even communicated this, or maybe we did, or maybe you just knew about it anyway, but obviously there's been a time shift on this side of the pond.
Ah,
So I
oh
thought, oh,
boy.
so we're recording at my normal Spanish time, but then that would mean it's closer, it's earlier in the day for you, if I'm not mistaken. Is that how that works? I'm
Well, I don't know.
trying to do the
I
maths.
believe you that there's been a time shift, but normally we're 6 hours apart, right? So
Ah, we're only 5 hours
does that
apart.
mean
So maybe not
not?
then.
Yeah.
No,
So
it makes
right
it
now,
worse.
we're only 5 hours apart. So as far as I'm concerned, we're starting this recording like an hour and a half behind our usual recording time.
Ah, so it makes it worse. It says the springtime is better. Okay. And then
Funny.
it's compounded by the fact that we've spent like 45 minutes with technical difficulties. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, my time is about to shift anyway, so we'll be back to
true.
back to normal standard operating procedure as soon as next week. I think it is over the weekend. The time shift. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, yeah. There's only 1 week where it's so strange how there's 1 week where we're 1 hour closer and
Hmm.
then it goes back to 6 hours. But I think in the spring, I think it's like a 2 or 3 week difference between the times
Wow.
when we shift, something like that. It's not synced up. It's very strange and very
No,
annoying.
it's bizarre. Yeah, we should do away with it. I don't know if I'm on record as saying that before, but I definitely believe it.
Oh,
There's no reason,
I'm in your camp on this one. Yeah,
no
yeah, yeah.
reason for us to be changing the clocks. Just get rid of it. Stop doing it.
Exactly.
Japan doesn't do it. There are a lot of places that don't do it. There's no reason for us to be doing it anymore. We should just stop.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's such a quote unquote Western slash Atlantic sort of way of thinking, right, with the time shift. But
Hmm.
yes, you're right. Yeah, Japan doesn't have it. Oh, yeah, no, there's talks here actually. It's kind of interesting now because we've had the time shift. So anybody who's listening, we're actually recording this on Halloween night, so we'll come into that in a
Yes.
minute. But obviously we've just had the time shift, and they have actually the Spanish president was talking about how he would want to get rid of it, but I don't think it would happen. My gut feeling is it would not happen on the national scale in Europe. It'd probably happen at the European level. I can't
Hmm.
see any individual company. I can't imagine any individual country doing it.
Hmm.
I really hope what they'd also do. Spain has like a double opportunity here: is a to abolish the time change, but
Hmm.
also to shift one time zone west,
Ah, yes.
and that would just
You had
make my
mentioned
day.
that. Yeah,
For so,
because you're out of sync with the rest of the European time zones.
no, the opposite. We're in sync with the European time zone, but that
Oh,
geographically makes no sense.
oh,
Um,
okay.
Madrid,
Okay. Geographically is how it doesn't make sense. Okay.
right? Madrid is further west than London, but it's a time zone east of London, which
Yeah.
that's just bonkers.
That's the information that I knew that I guess I phrased poorly.
It all went back to the 1930s. Um,
Yeah.
so I know it'd cause some issues with trade between France and Spain, but I think they could get over it. It just makes more sense given Spain, the majority of Spain's geographic, sort of spread. It is across the time zone that would match the UK way more than countries like Germany and France and Italy and that. So
Hmm.
um, they could kill two birds with one stone, a rook. They probably
That'd be
won't do it.
amazing. Probably not.
I want it for selfish reasons too, because it means then I'd be 1 hour closer to the eastern side of the US, which makes Fear of Dracula
Yeah.
organization much easier for me.
Yeah. That
Um,
much easier to schedule. Yep.
but we'll see if it happens. We'll see if it
We'll
happens.
see. We'll see. We were supposed to. Well, I shouldn't say supposed to. There was some news a few years back, actually, in the States about. I think it was the Senate had passed a bill saying that we're gonna get rid of the time change, and or we were gonna do like one more and then have that be the last one. And then, as far as I know, the whole thing has stalled and it's never gonna happen.
Oh,
So it's very
got
sad.
swept under the carpet somewhere. That bill is lying around somewhere for somebody to find in the archives. But yeah, it's just ah.
Yeah. I mean, apparently they snuck it by someone who was going to kill it no matter what. And so it was kind of not supposed to happen in the first place. And since then, basically the US government, from my perspective, has like completely imploded. And there's a lot more
Mhm.
wrong with my country that we have to fix before we get back to the time zones, as far as I'm concerned. But, that's just uh, the way things are at the moment. And again, we don't have to get too much into politics on this podcast, but it's also, I don't think, a mystery where I stand based off of various things I've said across the recordings if you've been listening.
um. So yeah, we've had that. So yeah, so I was so excited. Like, oh yeah, that means it makes our life easier for this podcast recording. And no, it doesn't. It's the opposite way around. But never mind. But yeah, we're recording on Halloween night. So there is I've been told by Rook there's a lot of suspense here, and I'm really hoping this comes to pass. There's a very high chance that Rook is going to be interrupted by trick or treaters
Well,
coming
I
to
don't
your
know how
door.
high the chance is. It's possible. It might happen.
That's not what you said to me. You built this up going, oh, we're probably going to get interrupted.
I built this. I built this up. I said, yeah, because it was Halloween and I wanted to hand out candy. So what you can do is you can sort of indicate to people whether or not you're open for trick or treating by putting out more or less decorations and having a light on or off. And so I've pulled back all the decorations because we were originally going to record on another night, and then that date didn't work. And because I was like, well, I want to be open for trick or treaters. And now I was like, well, if we're going to have this other recording, it'd be annoying if I have to tell Scott Sword to stop the recording and then restart and figure it all out. Technically, it's already a miracle that this recording is happening. We don't even know if it's working right now, by the way. It's a
Right,
miracle
that's
this is
true.
happening.
hmm I mean, if it's on
So,
YouTube, you know it's working.
yeah. So I was like, we probably don't want to like start and stop recording. So I'll like take the like I don't have that many decorations, but I won't put the light on, and I'll just try and send the signal that this isn't a place to trick or treat at. So hopefully we don't get any undue interruptions. Scott Sword, I guess, was hoping for the opposite. Was hoping for a live trick or treating interaction, but
It'd just be a funny
yeah.
interruption in the podcast. One of us would be on a monologue of some sort, and then suddenly this bell would come out of nowhere. Knowing my luck, I'll
Mm-hmm.
be the one getting interrupted by some idiots ringing my bell. And
Yeah, maybe.
that's one of the.
Yeah, they won't even
There you go.
they won't even have the excuse.
No, they wouldn't know. I mean, we've had that before where people just randomly ring on the all the bells of all the doorbells of all the flats. Obviously, there's like a downstairs like lobby. I'm in a block of flats, so some idiot will just walk past downstairs in the street, and they'll just ring all of the bells and then run away.
Oh boy. Wow.
So that's frustrating. I've said it before on the podcast. I'm a big fan of the Hello Internet podcast. That's probably my first exposure to podcasts. And one of the iconic moments for me is they did an episode where CGB Grey I think was maybe in Amsterdam, if my memory serves me right, was in a hotel in Amsterdam and decided to take like a workcation, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Decided, oh, I need to work really hard on a project. So what am I going to do? I'm going to fly across to Amsterdam and just sit in a hotel for a week and work away, or something along
Mhm.
those lines. But to do the podcast recording, he'd put a sign on the door saying, "Do not ring bell," and then of course the bell was rung during the
Of
podcast at
course.
some point because if you tell people not to do something, they will do it.
Yeah, they will. Yep.
Um, so yeah. Also, if my voice sounds like rubbish, it's because it is. I'm recovering from. See, I'm just permanently sick now. And maybe I should just start all my videos from now saying, "Hi, I'm Scott Sword. Yes, I'm sick." Right, we'll move on. Right, I just not. So I will have coughing fits during this. You guys at home probably won't hear it, but Rook will because of the way I'm muting myself. So yeah. Um, so that's that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we've also had a bit of change to the podcast because the background footage that you can see, it's not a film. It's lots of lovely photos, not provided by me. Rook, what is this? What is this contribution to the podcast that you're bringing for? for this episode.
We're stepping into unprecedented territory. My terrible photographic skills are now fully on display. So I took a bunch of photos while I was on my latest trip to Japan, and then I stopped in a little bit at Canada. Actually, the very first photos I think in this batch that I sent to Scott Sword are technically still in the States. They're like the airports I was going through, but very quickly we get to Japan. Japan is like the vast majority of the photos in the file. And then, like, way towards the very end, there was like a small handful that I took in Canada that I also included. And you may like catch sight of a person, an actual human being in some of these photos. That is me. This is technically a little bit of a face reveal, so ooh.
Oh, the mystery's gone now. People are going to be like, no, no, no. Aruk's just a voice. We don't. We don't
Yeah, well,
want.
they don't have to look. They might be watching on Spotify and
Oh, that's
have this on
true.
in the background. And yeah,
Exactly. They have
so
the background footage turned off by default. That's right. That's right.
yeah, but several of these I was putting up on social media anyway, so I figured it's not that hard to figure out who I am or what I look like. So I just prefer not to broadcast it most of the time. So we've got a few photos in here that will give away the mystery, but you can choose to, look and solve the mystery or keep it for yourself by not looking. And I don't really care which way you go with it.
So this is actually gonna be a nice change for me because often I just the last few recordings at least I haven't listened to them back too much just because I'm like because
Mm.
of time and also just like oh yeah I trust that Aruk and I were fairly coherent during that recording I'll just upload it. But this will actually be really nice because even though I'm looking at the photos now as they're going past on my OBS screen, it'll be actually really nice to sort of relax and sort of properly take them in. So is there anything in particular from that you'd want people to maybe look out for, or a particular place that you visited or a photo that you took that is one of your favorites from the batch?
Not really. I was going to say, right, because you've probably not seen most of these photos before. So I was
No.
going to say, if you did see a photo in the background as you're watching, because I can't see the slideshow, I don't know where it is. It's on Scott Sword's end because he's the one doing the recording. So if you see a photo and you're like, what's going on with that? I'm noticing this visual detail that I want to ask you about, right? I'm happy to answer questions about that. I do have all of the photos in a folder on my computer, and I can hopefully scroll down and find a relevant one and start talking about that particular detail that has caught your eye. But other than that, and I guess I can open that up, right? If you want to leave a comment and be like, "What's the comment?" or "What's this photo at like this timestamp?" And I don't understand. I'll try and explain my thought
Mm,
process, but
good idea.
yeah.
Um,
But just like from me, no, not really. I was just taking a bunch of photos. I
nice.
thought they looked nice. I will say you'll get to a point where I start going on a hike, and all of a sudden there's like a lot of photos of the hike,
Hmm.
and that's because I love hiking. I love like mountain scenery and things like that. And even as I was on the hike and was taking all these photos, it was like, yeah, you can tell that I'm really into like hiking in mountains and like forest nature type views and things. And well, it was part of it was an active volcano, and so I was like taking lots of photos of that. And it's like, yep, you can tell this is one of my interests because all of a sudden I'm taking a billion photos. I
Well,
guess if there's one like group of photos that I would put together, it'd be like, yep, that's one of the standout like sections of the slideshow. I think is when I'm out on a hike on Mount Aso.
and whereabouts is that in Japan? You can tell my Japanese
So
geography
that
is not strong.
Yeah, that is down on the southernmost of the main islands, which is called Kyushu, and it's in a prefecture called Kumamoto. So that was sort of the trip that I took this last. I guess it was just this past month. It feels like it's been longer,
Hmm.
um, but that was sort of the one thing that I did that was kind of touristy because I've been to Japan a lot. I've lived there for a long time, and I have a lot of friends there. So most of the trip was me visiting my friends, but there was one part of the trip that I had sort of open, and I was like, where do I want to go to do something that I've not really had time to do? And I was also thinking back a little bit to the time that I walked the length of the country because one of the things that I've since been able to do is think, okay, I went through this place and I had like a day, and it seemed cool, but then I had to move on, right? And where are some places that I might want to come back to? And Kyushu in general was one of those places, and Kumamoto in particular. So I was like, all right, let's head there and spend some time, and let's do some like actual touristy sightseeing stuff um, around that area. So that was sort of the motivation to go. And that way it wasn't just, I mean, I love spending time with my friends in Japan. That's why it was the bulk of the trip. But it also gave me an excuse to experience a part of Japan that has also sort of escaped me up to this point. So that was fun.
Brilliant. I guess it also must have helped too the fact you've done your what's the phrase I want? Like the sort of the rediscovery or the remembering, if that's even a thing, of the whole walk that you did across Japan, right? Because you ended up writing it up. You're going through all the photos, and
Yes.
you end up writing a summary of each day and things. So being able to sort of revisit that must
Mm-hmm.
have provoked a lot of memories and then inspired you for certain aspects of this trip.
Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. Well, I was gonna ask you if you had a whale of a time, and it definitely sounds like that was the case.
Oh, it was incredible. It was a great trip from start to finish, basically. So I loved it.
I've just seen there's a picture that's popped up with Boston pizza. So that doesn't sound very Japanese.
Oh, is this random order? Because that's like way at the end. That was funny because that particular place is in Canada. So my joke was, I flew to Canada to drive to Boston Pizza.
mm.
And apparently, they know this, right? They put it in their like little marketing thing on the like tables and everything, where they're like, we serve an Italian food uh, from with the name of an American city, but we're 100% Canadian. And apparently, it's that like it really is like a Canada started chain that now does like pizza, I guess, around presumably around the country. I just knew the one in Toronto, which is where my friend lives. So we met up there, and that was like the first night. I thought that was pretty funny, the fact that we went to Boston Pizza.
That's incredible. Yeah, I don't know what's happened with the order. I think I don't want to open the folder where they are
No,
because OBS
your
might
computer will
crash.
freeze. Yeah,
Yeah,
and this will all die.
we had some Japanese photos at the beginning, and then suddenly it's gone Canadian on us. I don't quite know what's going on. I think I did definitely order
Maybe,
them at some point as being like oldest to newest, but
yeah, maybe it's looping in reverse.
possibly. I don't know. Well, anyway, don't worry,
Hmm.
people. The Japanese photos will come back. If you don't want to see any bits of Canada, Japan will be coming back very soon. At some point. I don't know what.
Get out the sticky tape, put it over your screen.
Exactly, yeah. Or jump forward in like 20 minutes and then recording, it'll be fine. Yeah, I don't know. It'll come back at some point. Because I didn't realize there was some. I did have a very quick flick through. And at one point, I was like, "Oh, that's a lot of English. I wouldn't expect so much English." I was like, "Oh, wait, no, that's a Canada photo. That's not a Japan photo." So yeah, it caught me off guard. I was also
Hmm.
trying to keep up with your trip a little bit because you were posting some stuff on social media,
Yes.
but um, I've had like a huge readjustment recently because of work and stuff and having that schedule. So I've not been, especially during the week, I haven't been on the laptop very much. Only the last actual couple of days, where I've been like, oh right, I've got a bit more time. I'll go onto the laptop. So that was a huge error when I loaded up your social media, and I was like, "Oh, let's see what Rook's been up to." Oh my God, there's so much stuff, and then trying to make my way through. It's like, where is he? Having to scroll down to
Yeah.
the bottom and working my way back chronological order. It's just yeah. Um,
Oh
but
man.
I did see some stuff that you were posting.
Cool.
So yeah, so it all looked good. But I knew it was like, oh, well, there are photos coming, so I can wait and I can enjoy and I can
Yeah,
sit
you
through
get
the
the scoop
photos.
later on.
Exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. And so maybe some exclusives that went up on social media. So yeah, lovely.
Hmm.
I assume everything with
Fair
like
enough.
travels and stuff, there was no strange airport incidents like we've spoken about before.
Oh man, the airport security. Apparently, if you don't do anything for like, what was it, 6 years that I waited, they take you off whatever list you were on. Maybe I shouldn't say this as a blanket statement. Maybe they don't.
Nah.
But I didn't have any like security like stop me and like grill me sorts of situations like I've had like I did have like every other time I was traveling. And I've done this sort of trip several times before where I like go to Japan and then come back to the North America by visiting Canada because I have a friend there, and then coming home to where I live. And like basically every time I've done it, there's been some point in the process, frequently several points in the process, where they pull me aside or my like auto scan to get through to the line for security is rejected, and I have to go through this other special slow process where they're like more able to more carefully scrutinize everything. I didn't have any of that this time. I did have a bit of a like messy situation to deal with when it came to getting like from one flight to the other, because this was the series of flights where I decided, you know what, I don't need a paper boarding pass. That feels like a waste of paper. I don't have a printer, so I'm just gonna use the e-check-in with the airline apps, and we're gonna see what that experience is like. It was a bad experience. I highly recommend sticking with paper boarding passes. Because what happened was I was flying because I was going through Canada. I was flying via Air Canada, except the portion of the Air Canada flights that operated in the United States were being operated by a different airline. They call it like a code sharing flight or something. I'm not like super into the details, but that meant that I needed to have the United Airlines app for one set of tickets and the Air Canada app for the Air Canada portions of the flight, and these two things did not talk to each other at all. And so I went to try and like check into my flight, and I couldn't check in for the Air Canada portion, but I could check in for the United portion. And then I was like, okay, well that's probably fine because the first flight is on United to Canada. And I do that, and then I get to the airport in Canada, and it says, "Okay, scan your boarding pass," and I have no boarding pass to scan.
Mhm.
Uh, and so it's a thing where you just like go to an automated gate and you scan something. And I was like, all right, well, I tried my United one again, that didn't work. And so thankfully they had someone there who was stationed to like help out. They came over and were like, okay, you need to print physical boarding passes. Come over here to this other machine, and we're gonna work you through it here, like scan your passport, all this stuff. And they sorted me out, but it's like, okay, I should have just used physical
Paper.
boarding passes.
Mm.
So on my way back, I deliberately went to the check-in counter because I also without any checked baggage. I went to the like check-in counter even though I'd already checked into my flight and was like, I just need you to print boarding passes for me, and they were like, okay, we'll do it. And so instantly they like gave me those, and so the return trip was just completely smooth. But I learned my lesson on the way over.
Because as you were telling this story, I was thinking to myself, wait, is there not like a check-in desk? Is it all like automated in the States? And then as soon as you said I had no checked-in luggage, I was like, how? You went away for 2 weeks to like the other
Three
side
weeks.
of 3 weeks. Sorry, for the other side. Have you got like military grade like knowledge of how to pack clothes, or Rook? I just don't even know how that's possible.
No, I just do coin laundry.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
you spent
I
quite a
didn't
lot of your holiday in laundrettes or laundromats.
I didn't pack all my clothes. Well, they have it in like every single hotel I stayed at.
Ah, okay. And
So
affordable.
I could have also done it with my friend. Well, it's worked out to about what would it be, 400 yen for every time I used one. So what's that in? All right, this is going to be Japan.
Quick
Let's just do
maths.
JPY. Yeah, JPY to USD, and we'll put in 400 yen. So at the moment, that's $2.60 every time I wanted to do coin laundry. And I think I probably did that maybe 5 times on the trip.
In the
So
hotel. My God, that's dirt cheap.
yeah,
That's insane.
well, I did it. It wasn't someone else doing it, but yeah.
Bloody hellfire. The when we went away on our honeymoon, um, we had the same issue because we were traveling for I think well the honeymoon was not all this length of time, but the fact that we had like a wedding before, and then we had to do the honeymoon, and then we had to go to the England, blah blah blah. So there's just so much stuff we had to do, um, and we had to wash our clothes at some point. And we went to the hotel and asked them, "Do you have a laundry service?" Yes, we do. Here's a price list. Oh my days! Like, we spent the laundry would have been more expensive than the flipping room. I was like, oh my goodness, this is just not economical. So we ended up
Wow.
taking our
Were they
laundry
like
to a
doing
place in
it?
town.
Were
But
they like were they like doing it for you or something?
yes, but that still doesn't justify the amount they were going to charge us for that. I'm sorry.
Okay,
That's
I agree. I agree that it doesn't justify whatever they were going to charge you. However, I will say the nice thing about like the relatively low price in Japan is like that's pretty much what you'd pay at any like coin laundry place, and they just use the same coin operated machines. So they just happen to have like rooms in the hotels where they've got coin operated washers and dryers, and 200 yen for a wash cycle, and then 100 yen for every 30 minutes on a dryer. So it came out to about 400 for me because I would do an hour in the dryer. And yeah, also part of that is just the like yen to dollar conversion, right? So when I'm doing this, I'm saying like 400 yen works out right now to $2.60 American. Well, that's one thing when the yen is currently weak against the dollar. Back when I was like studying abroad in Japan, it was it would have been more, right, closer to like 400 yen. That'd be more like maybe $5 or $6 because it was actually not quite it was like the other direction where you want it to be 1/100th, but it's not quite actually that. And
mm,
so right now it feels like you get a screaming deal on the exchange rate. And back in the day, it was sort of the other way around, where the Japanese yen was just a little bit stronger than you would like to believe.
right.
So
Okay.
there is that too, but that I mean that's not going to explain if the way that you described the laundry experience, where they do it for you, they charge you as much as your stay, right? Like,
Yeah.
uh, that's still
Bonkers.
exorbitant.
Yeah,
But
absolute bonkers. It's like like they're saying like, oh, we'll charge you like €6 per shirt. I'm like, excuse me.
wow,
It's like,
that's like dry cleaning prices.
I was like, no thanks. We'll find a nice laundromat in the or even a laundromat like the one that we found a nice place in the center of Prague. We had our honeymoon and they did it for us. Like come back the next day and all be done and they did it. So there you go. And it cost us like a
Nice.
fraction of the price. I was like, that will do. Thanks.
Yep.
So. Oh my! They just take advantage. It was just I couldn't believe. I was like, "Excuse me." It was like,
Yeah, that's
are
absurd.
these zeros meant to be there? That's insane. But anyway, okay. Well, good for
Yeah.
you. That's goals right there. That you have the confidence to be like, I don't need a suitcase for this 3 week trip. I guess you didn't have
Yeah.
to then
Well,
drag it around with you all the time.
no, I didn't. No, it was I fit it all in a carry-on bag, so
There you go.
worked out. I basically had 4 days worth of clothes, and then I had enough room even then that I could still buy a bunch of stuff in Japan and bring it back with me. So I bought a bunch of like snacks to give out to people when I came back, and I bought some like I bought a nice fountain pen as a souvenir of the trip, which I kind of knew they're sort of developed to be like a stationary theme throughout the entire trip, which I didn't intend, but was kind of fun to see have happen. I mean, part of it was planned, but it was unplanned in the way I didn't go to Japan expecting to do a big stationary trip. And then I kept having these situations where it was like, well, I'll just look for a stationary shop. And there are a lot of really nice stationary stores in Japan. So I was very happy with my decision to do that.
It's funny that you mentioned that because as you mentioned it, those photos just popped up on the slide as well.
Oh, perfect.
So that was good timing.
Serendipitous. Yeah.
Absolutely. The other thing that it actually popped up on the slide. I didn't expect it to be on the slideshow, but it was something that we spoke about privately. Was you just sent this random picture to me at the sort of the beginnings, or maybe first 5 days or so of your trip, just saying, "Oh, this is
Hmm.
a bold claim." I'm like, "Oh, what's a bold claim?" And you'd found a restaurant in Tokyo
Yeah,
claiming to be the best paella and fideuà in Barcelona and in Tokyo, which
that's
is
right.
um, and in the end, you didn't have any.
No, I could. I didn't try, but they would have turned me away if I had tried because I guess you can't just order a personal sized paella. So
I mean, if you're really
I was out of luck.
greedy, if you want to take 3/4 of it home with you, then you could. But
Well, I don't think they would let me. They were like, we don't serve. There was a big sign in front of the door to the main entrance that was like, we don't serve like individual portions. You need a certain number of people, and you have to sign up for a course. So
mm,
I think they probably would have been upset if I tried to go in and order something for myself.
interesting. I have to go. Um, and I want to check out that place in Barcelona when the next time, because I don't go to the center of Barcelona that much at the moment, but hopefully soonish I'll go. I know I've definitely
Mhm.
got a visit to the center of Barcelona planned for February. I know that's quite far away, but it'll be with us pretty soon. Um, I'm seeing Alter Bridge,
Yeah.
Barcelona. Yes, so I can't
Oh,
wait for
that's
that.
exciting.
Um,
Yeah, you'll have to let me know if the place actually stacks up as the
y-
best in Barcelona.
I'm gonna have to go and check it out, but then again, they might turn me away, so I'm gonna have to go and see. But I think and they'll probably be quite accommodating. But yeah, they might look at me a bit weird and be like, "Really? You want a whole plate of food you want for yourself?" And I'll be like,
Mhm.
"Yeah." We'll have to see. We'll have to see. But yeah, it's just funny just when that message came through. That's just the last thing I was expecting.
I
Um,
know. Well, I saw. Oh, I don't think I sent you this one. I might have included it in the slideshow. But there was a whole shop that I walked by. This giant like window display of Mr. Men, and I
yeah,
was like, I would have no idea what those were if it weren't for Scott Sword. So,
really, dude. Did that come? That must have come up because I saw that picture's come up, and I giggled at it. But
oh,
it's like it's
nice.
a very strange thing for you to take a picture of, but that makes sense then. But wait, have we spoken about
Yeah.
this? I don't remember talking about Mr. Men. Maybe we
Oh
have.
yeah. I think it was you and Roscoe who were part of this conversation,
Oh, okay,
and
right. It's not a podcast thing. It's even older. That's like a
it
random.
predates. Yeah, it predates the podcast.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, okay. Yeah, okay. I didn't realize. I was like, are they American? Is that why you took a picture of them, or are they? No, okay. So they must be British then, maybe. A little series of books. If anyone doesn't know, they you would have seen the slideshow, maybe, or the photo on the slideshow. But yeah, it's a a set of children's books, and every character is called Mr. Something or Miss Something, so like Mr. Grumpy, whatever, or Little Miss Sunshine, and this sort of thing. And yeah, and the books are about their personalities. So I presume I can't imagine the context, but or I can't remember the context, but I can imagine the context would have been that probably Roscoe and I were probably describing people in the Dracula community, or probably at least us four, like you, me, Strider, and Roscoe,
Yep.
by um, those characters, I presume.
Yeah, it was one of those like tag yourself sort of situations, and you had like the big photo of all the different characters.
Ah, okay, okay, right, right, right. So okay, that makes a lot of sense why that was in the slideshow.
Yeah, I was like, what even is this? And so I took a photo of that. I meant to send it with you along with the Barcelona, like the best paella ever claim. And I was like, no, I think he'd appreciate that. And then I sent you the one and forgot to send the other, but oh well.
I see. I did.
That's what the slideshow's for.
When you sent through that picture about the paella, I didn't know the restaurant, but I did look up the menu and stuff, and I was like, well, based upon the menu, it seems fairly legit. So at some point, I'll have to go and try it, and hopefully, I'll be able to report back. We'll have to see.
Hmm. Yeah, I'll be curious to hear how it is in Barcelona. Like, I'm sure there's a difference between the stuff that you get when you order in Barcelona and when you order in Tokyo, but still.
I don't know. I'd be kind of interested. Like, I don't know. Did you? I don't know. Depending on how the restaurant was set up, did you get a glimpse of the chefs at all, or not, from the
No, no,
outside? No.
I couldn't really get a good look inside.
Okay.
But I don't mean that they'd have like totally different items. I just mean that the ingredients they'd be working with are probably different. But
Maybe, but I guess
I don't know.
if they really wanted to sort of like hold on to that claim, they might end up importing some of the more
They might.
specialized ingredients. Um,
Yeah, I sort of wonder about the situation if it's literally the same shop that moved over from Barcelona. Because one of the things I discovered when it was towards the end of my trip, but I was walking around Shibuya and I found a place that's like Isparni and Sons Tea, which is fairly local to me. And of course, I know that they've since like gone. They've got a big online presence for selling teas, and they've got a big tie to Japan, which is one of the reasons why I order from them. Is that they have a long relationship ordering Japanese sencha, and so I sort of appreciate that about them as a brand and buy a lot of their green teas. But it was very surprising for me to be walking around in Shibuya and then find like an actual physical Harney and Sons store because I
hmm.
always order online. Like there's a place like it's just over the border. I live in Connecticut. It's just over the border into New York. Um, So, and it's kind of far from where I am, but it's like I have been there once to like the original Harney and Sons shop, and it's a lovely place. And you go in there, and they give you like three teas that you can taste from their counter, and they've got this like massive selection at the store. They've got a little cafe attached to it that you can go and sit down, and you can order some light food and snacks, and then they have like tea that they'll bring out that you can enjoy. And this is the place that actually gives you a timer, so you know exactly how long the tea has been steeping when they bring it to your table.
Brilliant.
It's fantastic. Yeah, I wish more places would do that, but then, not every restaurant is that focused on tea. So,
Well, I mean, that's very wishful thinking. At the moment, my bugbear, I might have said this on podcast. If we do a pet peeves episode, this one's going to be one of them. Is there seems to be a trend here at the moment when if I order tea in a Spanish like little cafe or something, not complaining about the cafes in general, but what will happen is it doesn't have to be a black tea. It can just be like because I don't order black tea normally because Spain's black tea game is not very strong, unfortunately.
mm,
And so unless I found a very specific place, I'm like, yep, I know you do Earl Grey and you do it properly. Otherwise, I just order like a chamomile or something. But the thing that they
hmm
do, which really drives me nuts, is they'll bring the cup to me. And I'll sit there and go, oh, brilliant. And I'll be carrying on my conversation with who I'm with. And then 5 minutes later, I'm like, oh, let's get my tea. And I open it, and it's just hot water because they've
it's
left
hot
the
water.
fucking tea bag next to the cup. It's like, oh my
Yeah.
god, put the tea bag in because you put the tea bag first and then you pour the water on top of it. Ah!
Yep.
Ah!
Oh, that's wild.
Oh, man, it makes me so angry. First world problems, but still.
Yeah. Oh, well, at least they're not microwaving it, right?
I mean, maybe they are. I don't even want to ask. I mean, I'm hoping if they've got like the whole like barista set up, then they've got the hot water on tap, right? So that shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah.
But oh man, if they microwave it too, oh dear, dear. Yeah, it's oh, oh, I'm shuddering just thinking about it. Anyway, uh,
There's a spooky story for you for Halloween.
that now
And they
that
heated the water in the microwave.
oh. Oh my goodness, that is a horror story. That is. Well, I guess we should probably talk about Halloween a little bit, because it is topical. Because
Sure.
recording it on Halloween night, I think you might have more to say about it than I do. But we'll go for you first, because you, especially when you saying, "Oh, there's possibilities of trick or treaters coming," but I was like, "Oh, so you're in and amongst it. The Halloween traditions are real in
Yes,
your
they
neck of the
are. They are
woods."
real. There truly are trick-or-treaters that go through neighborhoods and knock on doors or ring doorbells and get candy. And they all dress up as different little, in their little costumes and have different things. So I don't necessarily know how much you want me to talk about because I don't know how generally familiar people are with Halloween, but it is definitely like a big American holiday. I was doing a little bit of research into because one of the things that I experienced like in real time was the rise of Halloween as an actual holiday that people celebrate in Japan. And so that's sort of the most interesting aspect of it for me is going to Japan and starting out in the JET program, teaching Japanese kids about what Halloween is and them not having any idea, to by the time I left, like seeing Halloween decorations pop up and like just actually have it become its own version of something in Japan, right? And they since went on to have like the big movements in Shibuya, which are now sort of like they're trying to crack down on, but still, it really took off, right? It went from like as far as the wider cultural awareness and knowledge of Halloween, it went from relatively low to like pretty high, like pretty well permeated through Japanese society. And this past time when I went on my trip, I was already starting to see some places with decorations set up for Halloween and it was already like getting into full swing because it was like the start and then eventually into mid-October. And I was like, this never would have happened. Even when I was leaving Japan and people like knew what Halloween was, it wouldn't be like, okay, there's a, couple months of ramp up to the actual Halloween holiday and there's spooky things and people will dress up and like do all these things. And that was never an actual part of Japanese culture. And I don't know if like they probably still consider it a sort of foreign thing, but there are more and more people in Japan that are doing something or another to like acknowledge the fact that there is a Halloween as a sort of um, almost a holiday, right? Not like it's in the sense that they get off from work, but in the sense of something to be culturally aware of. So I thought that was fascinating. And so that's sort of been the most interesting thing for me. But again, like, I don't know how much you necessarily know about or do for Halloween in like the UK or Spain.
Like I said, I'm very surprised that shift you're saying in Japan is so recent too, right? Because it's not,
Hmm.
relatively speaking, it's not that long since you left Japan, right? So if you've seen the difference in just those few years,
Well,
that's incredible.
well, you say that, but I left Japan in 2013, so it's been 12 years,
Yeah, but
and
still, that's still a short amount of time for something to really, especially something as
what's
like as widely celebrated as
yeah, what's
Halloween,
really
right?
short is the because I was only there for 5 years, right? I got there in 2008, and that was when sort of nobody really knew what Halloween was. And I left in 2013. So over that 5 year period, even, it was really on the rise. And then, fast forward 12 years, it's that much bigger.
Hmm.
It was really interesting.
But what sort of stuff is it just purely decorations that they go for? Do people actually over there, do they engage with the sort of Halloween traditions you have in the States where people dress up and go and get sweets, candy,
So they'll
from
do
people?
a lot
Or,
of dressing up. They'll do a lot of dressing up. They'll do a lot of sort of like the idea of it as a spooky holiday, right? So you have ghosts and bats and vampires and things, right? There's that sort of spooky theming to it. And there's a lot of commercialism behind it, right? There's a lot of Halloween themed things that are now available. And there's like that side of things is pretty big. There's also a pretty big idea of it as sort of like a party moment. And this is sort of the one of the things that the Shibuya Halloween became famous for is that starting around the like 2012-ish, people would really gather in Shibuya. There's this very famous crossing called the Scramble Crossing, which is like right outside the main train station, Shibuya Station,
mm,
and it's a scramble because it's got not just like four ways where people can cross, but like diagonally, and it's gigantic. It's not just any crossroads; it's a huge crossroads, and like so many people will go through it at a time that the whole thing is super crowded constantly, and it's a sight to behold. And unfortunately, because it's such a sight to behold, people have taken to filming themselves as they like walk across the street, and it's like, okay, this is an intersection, and I have to dodge the fact that all these people have these selfie sticks out and are filming themselves walking through Shibuya's famous scramble crossing. It's like, okay, yeah, but this is still a street.
mm.
That light's gonna
It's
end,
like the
and cars
Japanese
are gonna
Abbey Road.
drive. Yeah, yeah. Except it's not like, as far as I know, associated with like a famous band or album cover.
No, but still,
Uh,
in terms of the idea of people being touristy and taking pictures crossing the road, and life is actually trying, and traffic is trying to actually do what they should be doing. Um,
right. Yeah, that's gonna be similar. Yeah. But people apparently started just gathering around that area and essentially turning the like streets of Shibuya into one big party. And they would like dress up, and they had little like go-kart rides that you could go through. I remember like when I was doing my walk of Japan, um, I got to this point where I was seeing on social media these pictures of people driving around, and they'd all dressed up like Mario characters, and they were on these little go-karts. So they had practically like recreated Mario Kart in real life, and they were just driving around through Shibuya as part of a Halloween thing. It was really kind of fun.
that's legendary.
And that's I was looking at that photo, and I was like, this is how I know Halloween has arrived in Japan.
Uh,
Because people know what's going on here. Like they did this on purpose, and everybody else knows what this is and appreciates it. Uh, and I mean, it wasn't just that, right? It was also like the local bus companies that I would use would have little decorations for Halloween. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's not just this weird American holiday anymore that I have to tell people about. It's got its own traditions that are forming here in Japan. And that sort of party atmosphere is big. they don't do trick or treating, right? So there's no Japanese tradition of people going around to different houses. Like that's too far against Japanese culture where you don't want to bother people, you don't want to just
Hmm.
knock on some random stranger's house, right? Like that's a bridge too far for Japanese culture. But the rest of it they'll do. And then of course, the other thing that I should note because I was talking about sort of the rise of the Shibuya celebration, is that it's it became a huge public nuisance. Tons of trash that the city would have to deal with like the next day, and lots of people gathering around in the streets and drinking and partying. It just did not lend itself well to a bunch of situations. There were some Japanese people that like overthrew this truck. It was a light truck, to be fair, but they like overturned this truck as part of this celebration in like 2018, and that was sort of like the flashpoint moment when the mayor of the Shibuya ward was like, "We're not going to have this anymore." And so ever since they have these like stringent rules. Well, they will like shut down. Like you can't purchase any alcohol for consumption around the streets in Shibuya. You like have to go somewhere inside, and there's like traffic regulations that they'll enforce. Like different details will differ from year to year. It's always a little bit different, but they always try, and they have like a heightened security presence. They really, really, really do not want you to celebrate Halloween in Shibuya anymore. There are still people that show up and do it, but they really don't want you to do it.
Hmm.
And so there are a lot of official policies in place now that are like, we're never again. We're not having another 2018. And as a result, some of the like surrounding areas have started. I was reading earlier. I started to see a little bit of a spillover where nearby like Shinjuku and I forget what the other one is, but there are a few other places nearby that are like, okay, now that Shibuya is closed for Halloween, not really, but
Hmm.
they're discouraging it. We're gonna go and do some party type stuff in these other parts of Tokyo. So it's definitely in Tokyo. There's a lot of celebration that's associated with Halloween that wouldn't have been there before.
Hmm. Fascinating. It's interesting how like these things just take hold of a culture, especially with the internet and stuff, and the younger generation. They'd embrace, especially if there's a little bit of mischief making and things along the way, right? They'll embrace that.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's one thing that very quickly, like even before I started to notice the bigger cultural shifts around Halloween, I started to notice when I would go and give my talks about Halloween, the kids might not know what trick or treating was, but they knew what the phrase trick or treat meant because it was so funny to them that you would go up to someone and essentially threaten them as a kid and be like, "Give me candy or I'm going to play a trick on you."
Hmm. But nowadays, there's no trick, right?
No. No, I hopefully there was never any trick. Like in
Oh,
terms of what the phrase, go ahead.
why? Oh, okay. Let's see. If cause maybe I know a little bit of the history of Halloween, but then maybe I've been misled. Um,
Well, I don't know. I'm not an expert on Halloween. Maybe you might know better than me if you know that people actually used to pull pranks.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I did a little bit of research, not for this podcast, because I used to when I used to be an English teacher, I used to teach a little bit of Halloween to my students, and the phrase trick or treat, if I remember correctly, came from the fact that there were actual pranks that were done. And apparently, it was quite a violent holiday, and there was like, gardens being trashed and gates being broken and goodness what else. Um, but
I mean,
then,
there is still some associations with that sort of thing around Halloween. In the States, I don't know if you do this like over in Europe, but there's started to become like an alternative tradition on the 30th. I think they call it like Devil's Night or something. There's a lot of sort of like vandalism type stuff that people will do, but that's not associated with trick or treating.
hmm,
At least not in the current like modern context. That's just people going around and causing trouble, and they'll like toilet paper houses or like throw eggs, right? And just
hmm,
pull those sorts of pranks, and those can be like, potentially a nuisance. But in terms of like the practice of trick or treating these days, it's mostly about kids going around in costume, knocking on doors, and getting candy. And as far as I know, nobody makes good on the actual threat of trick or treat.
I think it used to be the threat was real, but then I think over time they wanted to sort of reduce the amount of public disorder. Go, oh, how could we do that? Oh, we'll just make it all about little children and cute costumes and chocolate, and then that kind of put stop
Interesting.
to that. But what was it like when you got like Devil's Night? That almost seems like it's like, oh, let's have a second April Fool's kind of thing. But it seems like a little bit more sort of not just jokes on your friends, but like a little bit more sort of legitimate disorder.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And again, though, I'm not a super expert on Halloween, so I totally believe it if you're like, yeah, they used to actually pull pranks. But the kids in Japan love that idea that it's like, or at least they did when I was teaching them. They'd be like, ah, it's so fun that we can like threaten adults with this thing that's kind of absurd. And they
Get
would give us
chocolate.
candy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, so yeah. Again, I don't know a huge amount about Halloween. I'm gonna be a little bit of a party pooper here. I don't really like Halloween as a holiday. I think that's maybe stemming from the fact, maybe because I think in the UK it's not. I mean, sure, there are people who probably do engage with Halloween tradition, but again, it's like a lot of things that we've spoken about. It's because American culture has betrayed it, and it's just
Mm.
infiltrated.
Yeah.
But there isn't the from a modern country perspective, there isn't a British tradition of Halloween. I could be wrong, and people could contradict me if I'm wrong here. Again, my sort of perspective on it is a little bit warped because I lived in an area where because I didn't live inside a small town or a village. I lived
Hmm.
like in the sticks, so the if there was any trick or treating, then I wouldn't have been involved with it. And also, I mean, I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I don't eat a lot of sweet food. So especially as a kid, I didn't eat um, what you'd call candy and like sweet chocolates and all this sort of thing. So a
Right.
whole
Yeah. We talked about that.
an entire celebration, because again we wouldn't use the word holiday. For us a holiday is purely when you have time off work or school, but a celebration which is essentially revolved around chocolate and sweets and things, but obviously I would never gravitate towards. I know like the other, like Christmas for example, there's a lot of chocolate and base stuff, that sort of thing at Christmas, but there's also other things at Christmas.
Right.
So you don't have to focus on that thing. Whereas Halloween is very much kind of the whole point is you dress up and you go and get lots of chocolate and stuff. And also, I'm not a big
Yeah.
dresser upper, so yeah, there's a lot of those sort of things. But I'm kind of interested when I was doing a little bit of research for my classes about the ancient traditions of Halloween, and it's a Celtic thing. At least the sources I was looking at, it's a
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say.
Celtic thing.
I thought it was like back to what's it called? Samhain or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's right. You're testing my Gaelic, and I have no knowledge of Gaelic, but yeah, it's to do with the um towards was it the after the harvest time or approaching the harvest time when they believed that the two worlds where you had the living and the dead were
Hmm.
at their closest, and it was possible for the dead to return, but also a lot of
Hmm.
monsters and spirits would go across as well. And the whole dressing up idea was that the I guess um, the folks who were living in that era would dress up is so that the monsters and the spirits couldn't see them. They would just think they're another
Okay.
monster or spirits as like a way of disguise rather than just dressing
Interesting.
up as a monster from fiction or whatever. So that's where that kind of tradition comes from. And then I guess through a lot of, that must have got passed down, and then with all the emigration from especially Scotland and Ireland to the States, that's how then it sort of kicked off, and then it transformed into because it would have been a pagan festival, I guess, and then it would have become a religious one from the
Hmm.
Christian perspective, and then it would have become a lot more about chocolate and that sort of
Hmm.
stuff. But then you've got in Mexico, I think I definitely in Mexico. I don't know about other Latin American countries, but you have Dia de los Muertos, which I think
Hmm.
is the first, but maybe it might be celebrated between the first and the third. Like, I should have researched this beforehand. That's something I'm a little bit more interested in. A, because I've sort of studied a little bit in Spanish class, and also there's a really good song about it. But yeah, that one's a little bit different, where they do believe, or at least the way they celebrate it anyway, even if they don't fully believe it, that the dead return. And they set
Hmm.
up like memorials for them in their houses, and they set like extra places for them at the dinner table and all this sort of thing. So there's a more sort of
Yeah.
a social holiday. It's not just about dressing up and going to get chocolate. People probably do dress up, but there's a lot more sort of
Hmm.
social sort of aspect about it and reconnecting with your ancestors and that sort of thing, which is
Yeah, Japan has its own sort of tradition that's more similar to the Day of the Dead, which is the Obon Festival, which is like the biggest actual holiday in Japan. This is a time that everyone will take some time off of work and go back home, and there are all these like celebrations and things, and they have like these big like bell ringings and bonfires and things that will be like welcoming the dead back to stay with the family, and then they'll have more fires to see them off at the end of the period, and it's interesting. I think it would be kind of intriguing to do like a studied comparison of the Obon in Japan and the Day of the Dead in Mexico, and maybe you could add in sort of the pagan tradition that sort of inspired Halloween that's no longer really present there.
right. It'd be kind of interesting to see if yeah, if the thing like the Dia de los Muertos, if that was something that just naturally evolved separately to the traditions that were the Gallic traditions
Mm,
originally, or the Celtic traditions, I should say, because Gallic's the language. Um, or if there was somehow, because I know there were Celtic people who were in Spain, so maybe they somehow transferred the traditions across, and then when you had like the European colonization of Latin America, especially from the Spanish, maybe they took then that tradition with them. I'm not quite sure because in Spain they don't celebrate de los Muertos. Um,
mm.
we do have a separate thing here. I had to look up for the pronunciation. It's a holiday or a tradition I should say that I'm not very familiar with because I've not experienced it firsthand. But I guess now when our daughter starts growing up, we might. It's called the Castañada. So castañas are chestnuts. So there's this
Okay.
tradition here where there's not. I mean, yeah, people might. As I was walking home this evening, I saw some people in the main square, going around with like little buckets of chocolates and stuff. But the original tradition is eating chestnuts on. I don't know if
Hmm.
it would be tonight of the 31st or going into the 1st of November. I'm not too sure. But the 1st of November is a day off, if I'm not mistaken. But that's All Saints Day. I think that's a little bit different. But
Hmm.
there is this tradition of, especially older. I'm going to say Catalan women, but I've looked up online and I think it's a lot of northern parts of Spain and maybe even parts of Portugal do it as well, where uh, there'll be people in the streets selling chestnuts. And I think there's also a tradition too. I don't know if it's with the chestnuts or with other objects where you put them in your house and it's meant to revive the dead in a sense, or give the dead like a boundary in, to know where they have to return and this sort of thing.
Hmm.
Again, I'm not fully up with it because again, I don't know if a lot of people that tradition I've just said. I don't know if a lot of people celebrate it anymore, and even then, I've not seen a lot of people with chestnuts and things in the street. Maybe it's just something that's just naturally kind of dying out, and
Hmm.
the chocolate sweet based Halloween is taking over. I'm not too sure. There were some people
Yeah.
dressed up in the street as I was walking past, but it's not. It's mostly just like university students who want to have a bit of fun, and then young children. It's not
Mhm.
something that is um, widely celebrated. So that one hasn't caught on
Interesting.
as much. But there is Halloween decorations in the shops and things. But it's not as if everyone's got pumpkins outside their door or anything like that.
Hmm. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I did see that now that you've mentioned pumpkins, one of the things that I was finding when I was doing my like quick research on like Halloween in Japan is they don't really do pumpkins, but they've long had. I mean, they'll have like images of pumpkins and things, but in terms of like actually decorating pumpkins and putting them out, I haven't seen a lot of that. I mean, maybe they do it in places I haven't been, but I haven't seen much of it. But what I did see was apricots, which already has some association in Japan with like once you get towards the end of the year.
Hmm.
And so I did see a little decorations where they'll put out like apricots that are sort of like mini pumpkins.
Oh,
So I
interesting.
thought that was kind of fun.
Well,
Um,
in the old day, or at least back in a long, long, long time, when we're talking about the sort of the original Celtic folklore, they used to use turnips as the
oh.
as the thing they used to carve faces into. I think that's where the tradition of jack-o'-lanterns comes from. It's to do
Hmm.
with a person called Jack, but now I can't remember the story exactly. But then I guess when they went across to America, they found all these pumpkins and went, oh, these are quite easy to carve, so let's just use them. So yeah, I can't imagine carving a
Interesting.
turnip. That would be pretty hard work, I'd imagine. So,
Keeps changing. Yeah.
mm, hmm
Yeah. Some of the pumpkin carvings that people do just astonish me though.
Oh
Like,
yeah, very impressive. Yeah.
yeah, it's just amazing to see the like level of artistry that people can bring to it. And just I whenever I go to carve a pumpkin, it turns out like the most stereotypical thing because anything else is just beyond my skill level. But I see what other people do and it's like, wow, this is like its own art form.
Mm. Is it like
And the
anything?
way that they'll like shade things so that you can see the light without it actually going all the way through, like it's crazy.
That's very impressive. Yeah, you can get.
Mhm.
I can imagine a lot of people having a lot. That would be probably one aspect of. I mean, not that I'm good at that sort of stuff because I'm not very sort of gifted with my hands and sort of doing practical things. But that'd be the kind of thing that I would sort of gravitate, like sitting down and carving pumpkins and laughing at how terrible they look afterwards, most likely. But yeah, it's like
I will
anything. Turn into
say,
an art. Everyone will turn it into an art form, one way or the other.
yeah, I will say, like speaking of your sort of not strong connection to Halloween, I am a little bit ambivalent to see the rise of Halloween in Japan because on the one hand, I think it's kind of fun and I think it's fascinating culturally, like you said, to watch the sudden like rise of this new holiday in Japan. I think just that's fascinating. But at the same time, there's another part of me that's like one of the things I used to love about Japan was Halloween was such a like foreign transplanted idea that it wasn't everywhere. And fall is my favorite time of year. And it was nice to be able to go around Japan and see all these like fall themed things that weren't tied specifically to Halloween.
Hmm.
And they would do things like, okay, everything is like chestnut now. Like you were mentioning chestnuts earlier. And I still they still do that. I had a bunch of like chestnut flavored food as I was going around Japan because chestnuts are in season and Japan is all about like using foods that are in season. I actually had a fancy chestnut gelato when I was visiting one of my friends up in Aomori Prefecture. And that was kind of fun. But that's the sort of thing that Japan will do. Very focused on like food in a way that I don't think necessarily you get in the states. But it was nice when it was just like here's this nice stuff about fall. Here are like the best like fruits and vegetables and other things that are associated with fall and now you're gonna like eat those and celebrate those and we're gonna celebrate the changing colors of the leaves and have all these decorations up and there's nothing that's related to Halloween about it and I kind of liked that experience so that I could celebrate the season without necessarily having it all tied up in oh it's the spooky holiday, right?
Hmm.
uh, and part of me feels like I like watching the rise of Halloween in Japan but part of me mourns the loss of it's just fall and let's celebrate autumn, right?
Right. No, I'm the same. I adore autumn, and yeah, it's become very much. Yeah, I see your point. It's very much
Hmm.
same as winter is just so hyper focused on Christmas, right? Where
Yes.
where maybe there's not as much of charm with winter, but yeah, there's something very special about autumn. But it's just so everything's just gravitated towards this one day, and
Hmm.
as you said, all the spookiness. But there's so much beauty in autumn as well.
Oh yeah, I strongly agree.
I think the one the one advantage of Halloween existing for
Hmm.
me is it creates a buffer before Christmas. Because
Oh
nowadays, if
yes,
Halloween didn't exist, they'd be doing Christmas stuff in fucking July, and it would just drive
they
me
sure
nuts.
would. Yeah.
Ugh. I mean, we'll talk about Christmas at some point properly, but I'm going to say right now, I adore Christmas.
Hmm.
I'm not. I'll poop on Halloween a bit, but Christmas, I adore Christmas so much. But I'm one of those people
Hmm.
where I want Christmas to be intense, and I
Hmm.
only want it to be in December and maybe a tiny bit into January.
Yeah.
Do not talk to me about Christmas or whatever in November. Do not talk about it to me in October. I want to know nothing
Hmm.
about it. Um, And when December
Yeah.
comes, that's when the decorations go up. That's when the tree goes up. Right, you can do present, all that sort of stuff. And I'm
Yeah, I think we're
very,
of a similar mind on that one. I sort of get annoyed by the fact that in the States anyway, we do have an additional theoretical sort of barrier, which is Thanksgiving.
hmm,
And that holiday is basically ignored in terms of like the big like commercial forces. And so almost as soon as Halloween is over, you'll see Christmas stuff coming up. And it's like, okay, first of all, it's too early for Christmas stuff. And second of all, what about Thanksgiving? You're just like ignoring this whole entire holiday? What's going on?
I suppose I guess from a commercial perspective, right? I guess their buffer is Black Friday, right? I
Yes.
suppose that's the pre from a commercial perspective. That's the pre-Christmas buffer. But
But
yeah,
it doesn't stop places from putting stuff out like
well,
in
true.
November 1st, right?
Yeah, of
It's
course.
crazy.
I guess that's probably one good
Yeah.
thing.
So,
I don't know much about Thanksgiving because it's not a British thing, but it seems to be like a more sort
mhm.
of social holiday
Yes.
rather than being hyper commercialized.
Yes, it is. It's more about sort of gathering together with family and being thankful for things, which I like. I appreciate that.
Hmm.
And so it feels weird. Not that I'm shocked, but it feels weird to have that just completely ignored. In not maybe not completely, but in large part ignored um, in a lot of the like marketing stuff because they can't sell as much, you know.
Don't give them any
But
ideas. It's only
yeah,
in 10 years from now, Thanksgiving will be
I'm gonna
hyper
come up with.
commercialized, and you'll be like,
That's right.
no,
Why did we do
curses.
this? I wished on the monkey's paw. Yeah.
No,
But
I
uh,
I just walked into my local supermarket only a couple of days ago, and I saw advent calendars
oh boy.
and panettone, and I'm just like, my god, I want to leave.
Mhm.
It drives me nuts.
Yeah.
It just seems to be getting. I'm gonna sound like an old man. It was getting earlier and earlier every year, but it is. And
It
it's
really
just
is. It's not like a it's not like a false observation. It's true. Like I love Christmas, by the way. They have been trying to say that for a little while. I should clarify. I do love Christmas. But the further it gets outside of December, it's just like, what are you doing?
hmm.
Advent calendars, I sort of understand, right? Because you have to start as soon as December starts. So, you know, maybe give them a little bit of an advance like permit. But a lot of the other stuff, it's just like, what are you doing?
You don't need
Too
to,
early.
but you don't need to buy advent calendars more than a month before you actually start the advent calendar. Let's be
That's true. Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
be real.
Even then, right? Yeah, even then there's limits.
Um, so I'm very much about Christmas is awesome, but have it as this short burst. No, I know a month is not a short burst, but if you want to make the whole of month of December to be about Christmas, I'm on board with that. But don't do it any earlier than that. I think it's because I think
Hmm.
very early on, again, we'll have a Christmas episode, but it was very ingrained where we used to get all the decorations up. I think around the
Hmm.
3rd or 4th of December, give or
Hmm.
take, kind of, depending on when the weekend fell around that date. But yeah, I always had Christmas decorations up in our house for the entire month of December until about the 5th of January, I think it was.
Hmm.
Um, so I never really associated Christmas for any other period of time apart from that. It's only
Hmm.
now more recently where something you see, especially when you become an adult and you go out a lot more and you see the Christmas stuff appearing and you see
Yeah.
adverts on the TV and just like, no, I
Hmm.
don't wanna, I don't wanna. Um,
Yeah.
so that's an issue. So yeah, we don't have a buffer between Halloween and Christmas. I mean, the only buffer that's there in Scotland is St Andrew's Day, which is at the end of November, which is the Saints' Day of Scotland. But it's not a public holiday. Nobody has the day off. I don't think most people don't have the day off. There's no celebration.
Hmm.
We have a celebration in January for Robert Burns, and that feels more like a national day because people actually do, you know, special stuff and eat haggis and the like. So
Yep.
yeah, it's just everyone's like, oh, Happy St Andrew's Day. Okay, cool. Um, so yeah, we don't have that buffer. So yeah, that's the only thing. Because now it's like, oh, Halloween's past. It's a sliding slope. Everything's gonna be about Christmas now for the next 2 months until the big day. And then the big day arrives, and like, I've had two months of Christmas before now. This is not really.
I'm tired of Christmas. Let's
I'm
get it over with. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. It's even worse in Spain because the main gift giving day, again, it depends on how people celebrate because of infiltration of mixing of cultures. It's all been sort of changed, but the main gift giving day is actually the 5th of January.
Oh, wow.
At the end, it's the King's
The
Day.
yeah, the final, the 12th day of Christmas. Yeah, All King's Day.
Yeah. So it feels even longer because you have all like the school holidays start, and workers will have the 24th, no, the 25th and 26th off and whatnot, and then but the presents don't arrive until later. But now a lot of families have Santa Claus who comes around the 24th or 25th, depending on how they do it. And then obviously in Catalonia we have the tier, we have the log, the Christmas log that
That's right.
poos out the presents. So that's normally 24th, 25th, 26th, again, depending on how families sort of unite and celebrate it and stuff. So everyone's going to be doing it slightly differently.
Hmm.
So, yeah, there you go. I don't like Halloween, but it protects us from Christmas stuff until November, at least. That's my
Yep.
summary.
There is that. Yep. All right, fair enough.
Your doorbell has not rung. I'm very disappointed.
No, I did hear a bunch of kids walking by in the background. I don't know if the mic will have picked them up. So
No.
they're out there, but they're getting the signal that I sent, which is don't knock on the door.
um. Okay. Where to?
Where to indeed? I've been relying on you to direct traffic here, but I'm happy to
Okay.
go wherever you want.
I'm looking on the list. Well, we can do a quick thing. We might not talk about this for
Mhm.
too long. We'll see. Um, how was your sort of you had all this media sort of planned, right, for your long haul flights, and was it there was audiobooks and
Yes.
music and the like? Did you manage to get round to anything in particular that you want to share?
Well, I did a few things. I finished the Thursday Murder Club book,
Mm,
so
the first one.
listen to that. Yes, listen to that book in its entirety. And also, I didn't realize this. It was really funny because I was listening to the book because I listened to it as an audiobook. And I was looking at the like time that it was left on the recording, and I saw there was like an hour or something like left in the book, and I was thinking this like narratively feels like it's about to wind down. What are they going to talk about for the last hour? Turns out, if you buy the or my version of the audiobook, has like a 45-minute long interview with the author at the end.
Ah,
So that was a nice surprise. So I got to listen to that as well. And so that was fun. And I did get to listen to Pawns and Kings, the currently latest released album by Alter Bridge. And unfortunately, this one I think was not for me. But
sorry, I had a cough with amazement. Okay. Well,
yep.
before we dive into that, because clearly there's some stuff. Firstly, Murder Club.
Hmm.
I started reading
Yes.
it, and
Yes.
then
You inspired me to pick it up because you said you were reading it on screen or on stream.
yeah, I was doing it through the Discord. Actually, probably putting Audible out of a job by reading it myself and uploading onto Discord in 2 minute chunks, but it's okay.
Oh, great.
Um, but I didn't get. I think something must have happened, and then I didn't get around to reading it again. It was very comical. It was actually
Hmm.
very hard to read it because I just kept laughing and having to redo takes.
Hmm.
But obviously now because it's on Netflix, right? They've made a film adaptation version of it. Um,
Yes, which I have not seen.
so even though I haven't finished reading the book, Criminal, my wife and I watched the Netflix film. Um,
Oh, interesting.
we I can't remember when we watched it. I mean, it's obviously since Elle was born. Um, we must have just tried to take advantage of when we're having dinner, and if Elle was like somewhat sleepy, we'd be like, "Oh, let's
Hmm.
just stick it on and off," and it would just be 10 minutes or something. I think actually, I think I
Hmm.
remember correctly. I finished watching it. Did I finish watching it? No. Sorry, that's Wednesday. Never mind. I finished watching Wednesday on my own, and then we had to I rewatched it with my wife. No, Thursday Murder Club.
I
We
see.
we watched it together, but I think we had to spread it out across the space of like I don't know, a week because we just kept getting
Mm-hmm.
interrupted because babies are not very, cooperative in terms of allowing you to watch stuff. Um,
Right.
so, but yeah, it was entertaining. It'd be interesting to see how it tallies up with the book. But I've got no excuses now. I can read the book and then rewatch the film, and see how it all tallies up and things. I think Richard Osman was
Yeah.
fairly
Yeah. I'm.
involved with the process, but again, with screenplay adaptations and stuff, a lot of stuff might have got cut or reframed or
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, apparently he did a lot of writing in TV before he wrote the book in the first place. So it wouldn't surprise me if he was involved in the production.
I don't. I see. I watched an interview of him a while ago, and
Hmm.
I hadn't realized this because I know him as a TV host. The place where I saw him first was on a TV quiz show in the UK called Pointless. The
Hmm.
premise of the show is very basic. It's you get asked some sort of open-ended question, um, where there's multiple correct answers. But you're trying to pick. It's like the opposite of, you call it Family Feud, I think.
Yeah.
We had to find
Hmm.
we call it Family Fortunes. We had to find the most popular answer. In Pointless, you need to find the
Right.
opposite. You need to try and find the answer that the lowest that was surveyed.
Oh, that's funny.
And if you get
Nice.
and literally a pointless answer is where no one out of the 100 people surveyed said it.
Oh, that's
And
great.
you add money to the jackpot. So it's kind of it's like a complete flip on the premise, right? But if you got really
Yeah, that's a
niche
great
knowledge
idea.
of something, you can do quite well. But sometimes when you
Mm.
see some of the answers, like what the who are these people who they're surveying? It's like some wacky thing where they ask like a really obviously well-known thing. How can only 60 people out of 100 know Elvis or something like that, right? Something crazy on that sort of
Hmm.
scale. But clearly common knowledge is not common knowledge. But anyway, um, but he was on that. He was like the assistant on there,
Hmm.
and he'd sit there in front of his fake laptop that wasn't actually turned on, and he would talk about the stats of the answers and whatnot. So he did that for a long time. That's where I knew him. And then he has his own
Hmm.
show and things. Then he was on Taskmaster in one of the very early
Hmm.
series of Taskmaster. But I didn't
Which is
realize
how
it.
I knew him.
Right. But yeah, because I guess maybe in the States he hasn't done anything. So that probably makes sense that through
Not as far as
Taskmaster.
I know. Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think Pointless is international. So that probably, out of all the things he's done, that's probably the one that's the most international. So that would make sense. Um,
Yeah. I think he might have also been on Would I Lie to You?
that wouldn't surprise me. I haven't seen him on it, but I would not be surprised if he has been on it.
Hmm.
Because he's not a comedian by trade, but he'd be up for doing that type of stuff, I'd imagine. So yeah, that makes sense to me.
Hmm.
But he's actually done a lot of sort of TV production, so a lot of really famous TV shows have been
Hmm.
produced by him or by his production company. And so he started naming all these TV shows he's worked on. I'm like, oh my god! But I don't know
Hmm.
if he. See, that's the thing that we say on TV writing. I don't know if he's done like screenplay writing. He might well have done, but the shows that I
Hmm.
can remember he's worked on are more like game show based
Hmm.
programs, not ones with a script. But he could
Yeah.
have
All
worked
I
on something with
know
a
is
script.
I listened to the 45-minute interview at the end, and he makes like an almost offhand comment about how, I've been writing for TV for whatever. And so I don't know how much writing he's actually has or hasn't done, or if that writing is like scripted drama type writing, or if it's a different type of TV writing entirely. Maybe he does writing for game shows, right? I don't
Mm,
know. It was just an offhand comment, and so I was like, okay, well, I guess he's written for TV, and this isn't like it may be his first novel, but it's not like the first time he's ever sat down and written anything.
right. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, I might have to go back and re-listen to that interview or something, where because maybe there was other stuff that he done with scripted, but now maybe he might well have said it and I would have forgotten it. That seems like something I would easily
Yeah.
have done.
Well, I mean, I didn't listen to the interview you were. It was the one at the end of the audiobook. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was a fun watch. So yeah, it'd be just kind of interesting to
Good.
see how it ties up. I know there's like the thing I'm interested in now is I wouldn't be surprised if they just keep making the films, because there's now like 5 books in the series. I want to say I can't remember. Again,
Interesting.
I'm not gonna
I knew that there would
research
be
it.
I knew that there would be a second because in the interview he was like partway through the rough draft for the second book in the series. And
Oh,
so I knew about that, but I did not know that there are now even more. Doesn't surprise me. The first book was good. I do think so. Like, this is the sort of short version. I intend to go onto your Discord community, Scott Sword, and start doing little write ups of the things that I've done, sort of like what I did for the Rebus books, which I started another Rebus book because you were asking about like media that I was on my vacation. I started another Rebus book that I have since finished. So I am like two Rebus book summaries short, and I used to put those in our like private Facebook chat, but I'm thinking of moving those over to like your community. You have a little like what I'm reading section, and
hmm.
I think that's a better place to put those sorts of things because when I put them in the little Facebook chat, it like completely overwhelms everything because it's like,
It's
even though it's not actually that much writing, it looks like I've written a book myself.
yeah, just the way the chat window just squishes everything. But it is a book review to keep you company.
That's right. So I'll be putting those in Scott Sword's Discord community from now on, if you're curious. But my like short version of the Thursday Murder Club review is I really thought that the characters were very well like brought to life. Felt very true to actual people. And I thought there was, and the interviewer at the end of the book, I think, comments on this as well, which I thought was, I was completely in agreement on this point. They really feel like actual people, the characters in the book, and they're treated with a level of humanity that you might not expect. Like pretty much every character in the book is given an understandable viewpoint at the very least, if not a relatable one. And so I thought that was a very good strength of the book. I wasn't that enamored of the actual mysteries, but it's the sort of thing where like you go in and you find this like sort of cozy little community of all these people living their lives, and I imagine that you could very easily just spin that into a series because people want to spend more time with these characters,
Right.
right? So I can definitely see that sort of taking off.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. Obviously, I hadn't got far enough into the book. I won't spoil anything like really, really specific, but by watching the film, there are some sort of certain issues that the characters have in their own
Hmm.
personal lives with family members or whatever. Obviously, at the point that I'm in the book, I don't know those things. Um,
Hmm.
so it'd be interesting how that gets dealt with. The thing I just liked about it was I can see why it's a bestseller because it's very easy to
Hmm.
read. It reads very
Yeah.
humorously. The
Hmm.
very early scene in the film and in the book where the I can't remember what's her name, PC Donna De Freitas. I'm trying to remember her name.
Yes. Yep.
Um,
That's
she
you got it.
she comes down into Cooper's Chase and she wants to do like the security talk or whatever, and then the residents just start having a go at her, and just these comments that go back and forth. It's like you can just imagine people sitting there in an old folks' home
Oh yeah.
saying these things, and it just feels so like yes, you feel like you're in the room and this is legitimately happening, and this is all very amusing. So
Hmm.
you can just see, as I think it's one of these things where maybe I mean I don't know. So yeah, there are 5 in the series. That was good on me. So there was the Thursday Murder Club,
Nice.
the Man Who Died Twice, the Bullet That Missed, the Last Devil to Die, and the Impossible Fortune. Has that one been released yet? It is.
Ooh.
Yes,
Okay.
September. Um, but yeah, I don't know how like in depth the mysteries are going to get. They're not going to be
Hmm.
particularly profound, but at the same time, they're going to be books that are just very fairly easy to consume. And as you said, if the
Right.
characters are the thing that's sort of driving the interest, rather than necessarily the mysteries of them. But then still, people will play along with it and go, "Oh, I wonder who kind of." British people in particular really like a who done it.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of the traditional TV channels, especially I'm thinking like ITV and that, are very much dedicated. There's even a whole like channel in the UK that just shows repeats of old crime slash detective series
Hmm.
over and over, and they're like shows from like the early 2000s, the 90s, and they just still keep playing them over and over because people like this premise of putting on some cozy, it's not like this
Yeah.
gruesome police drama, right? Something like a
Right.
Luther, right? Which I like Luther,
Right.
but at times it's like, ooh, this is a bit intense. You turn it on, it's like, oh my god, the guard has been murdered. Oh, I wonder who did it, kind of thing, right? And you can just play along with it. It's all very
Yeah.
like Miss Marple.
Yeah. The cozy mystery. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me because it definitely feels like a cozy setting, right? And then there are the murders and the mysteries and things that happen. One thing that I thought was super interesting from the like end of the book Audible interview that was in my audiobook was the author Richard Osman was saying how he was really sort of scared to make the book funny. And so he tried to sort of pull back on that angle and it just like sort of came out in the process of writing it or some can't remember his exact words, but I remember being struck by the fact because I like you was like, oh, this book is funny like all the way through. It's really like humorously written and very like enjoyable to read because of that. And the back and forths like they feel real but they also feel funny. So it felt like there was a lot of comedy in there. But apparently that was like a major concern of his was how much comedy to use and when to use it and what sort of comedy to use. Where
Hmm.
if it felt like it was something that would be natural for the characters to use, then he would like use it, but it wouldn't necessarily be, oh, I'm just trying to put in as many jokes as possible type funny, right?
Right,
Not like yeah, the like, throw everything at a wall and see what sticks sort of humor.
right. So that's a good, yeah. Real tricky, especially if somebody's coming from a slightly more comedic background, right? They've been on Taskmaster, so they're around a lot of comedians and things. It might be quite easy to sort of fall into that trap.
Yeah.
But again, I haven't read the whole thing, um, but the bit I did read, I was finding it wasn't a laugh a minute kind of thing, but I would
Right.
get a really good chuckle out of each chapter. I'd have to stop
Hmm.
at least once during each chapter of my read through and giggle at the things that they were just coming. Just like these like snide, like little witty comments back and forth, and it was just yeah.
Yep.
And I think you just you kind of can imagine you already know a person who is like that character,
Yes.
which makes it feel, as you said, very real.
Hmm.
As I said, it's not going to be the most profound of mysteries, but that's okay. It doesn't. It's not trying to be that, I
Right.
think. So that's okay. Um,
Yeah.
okay.
And I do think there's one mystery that lands pretty well because it's sort of rooted in the characters. And there's another one that just feels like it's probably a little overly complicated. And it's still a nice moment in the book when you learn about it. But yeah, I think the real draw in that first book, anyway, because it's the only one I've read, is the characters and the sort of world that the author has created there.
Well, since I've watched the film, I'll have to now make that an effort of mine to make an effort to go back into the book and then be able to do it because maybe that particular mystery that you're talking about, maybe it got changed for the film. So
Ooh, maybe.
maybe if it did end up being maybe too complicated to translate to screen, or maybe they wanted to cut it a little bit. But I'll have to I'll read the book and I'll have to report back at some point. So yeah, brace
Okay.
yourselves for that in probably, I don't know, when should we say, July 2027.
Something like that, yeah.
No, I have actually been saying to myself, if I can't go onto the laptop each night, because basically what's been happening is I've been coming home at, I normally arrive home about quarter past to half past six each night, depending on traffic and
Hmm.
what time I leave work and stuff. Which is like, oh, that's great because I've got the whole evening, but not really because adulting happens. If I was a
Hmm.
young 21-year-old, that'd be different because I'd have no responsibilities. I just waltz in, boot up my laptop, start streaming, quick dinner, all that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
But it's like, nope, I've got a flat to look after, and I've got a kid, and blah 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 blah. And by the time all that gets done, and dinner, and thinking about lunch for the next day, and whatever, and once all that's done, oh look at that, it's 10:30. It's time to go to bed.
Yep.
But since I'm not,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no point booting up the laptop, but I have actually thought to myself, well, that's an excuse. If I've only got half an hour, I should just sit there and read for a bit. So
Mm-hmm.
let's see if I can
Yeah, it's a good
actually
way to do it.
motivate
Like
myself.
a half an hour, yeah, a half an hour to an hour when you're done with everything else and you've got a little bit of time before bed. That's when I used to never read during that time slot because like reading was like my main activity and the thing I wanted to do the most. And even though I still love reading, and I've sort of been able to circumvent that as the only time that I read because of audiobooks. But when it comes to me sitting down with an actual book, that's the best time now for me. It's okay, I've done with everything else and I've got a little bit of time before I go to bed. I'll do some reading.
Mm,
And it adds up.
it does. So yeah, let's see if I can. Maybe I should just move the book out of my office and onto the bedside table or next to the sofa, and
Yeah,
that will focus my brain. We'll see.
maybe.
We'll see. So obviously that was a hit with a rook, and now to a miss.
Hmm. Yeah. Pawns
Pa-
and kings.
Pawns
Yeah.
and kings. What is going on?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it was. I can tell you the problem that I had the first time I listened to it, which was I listened to it on the train and that will like basically destroy the low end because
Hmm.
there's just the constant sound of the train in motion.
Right.
So I listened to it on the Shinkansen. I was pretty jet lagged still. The low end was gone, and because I was jet lagged, I was sleepy, and so I was trying to stay awake. And I thought listening to Alter Bridge would keep me awake. And what happened was I could not differentiate one song from another, and then the whole thing was over. And I got to the I was like that can't be right. Like the listening conditions here, I think are a big issue, and I should give this a proper listen once I'm back home, got my like speaker set up, don't have to worry about being on a train, no longer jet lagged. And so I sat down and gave it another listen, and it I don't know, it sort of felt like all the songs were well done but none of them connected with me, right? We've talked before about how you feel about like Eric Clapton, right? Someone who's very skillful, and you'll admit that he's very skillful, but you don't necessarily connect to his music because you don't have the emotional hook. Sort of felt like that with me with Pawns and Kings because I just listened to a bunch of those songs and was like, that was a bunch of, well played Alter Bridge songs that I just did not feel like I found a way to latch onto or that really drew me in.
Hmm.
And I don't know what specifically it was about this album that made me feel that way, but I definitely felt that way. Um, so that was a surprise and a disappointment, but I can't help the reactions I've had. Um, I'm interested to give it another shot again because I do think repeated listening changes your experience with music in particular. So, and definitely it changed my experience with Walk the Sky. That album, like, it was so different from what came before that I was just like, maybe I'm just gonna like skip this one completely. By the time I was done listening to it, I was like, no, I actually like most of the stuff on this album, and came back around to a happier place with it. So it's possible, entirely possible, that Pawns and Kings will work its magic on me more slowly, and I'll be able to connect more with the music. But yeah, unfortunately, it was a little bit of a miss this time around.
Hmm.
But I that's probably not the standard experience. What's your opinion of Pawns and Kings?
No, I think there's definitely something to be said about just I we talked about it before, like timing when you discover a certain media, it might not click. I've been taking advantage of my drives to work and trying to listen. I should
Hmm.
have listened to Pawns and Kings again properly, so I'd have a lot of analysis, but I don't. But um, I've been trying to sort of go back and listen to albums you know, I previously listened to and have neglected for a bit, and one of them is actually listened to today was Tremonti. So Mark Tremonti in Alter Bridge, he has a side project called Tremonti, and it's more
Hmm.
metal based, sort of melodic speed metal, a little bit thrashy. There is some softer stuff in there as well, but it's definitely got a heavier edge. if you listen to the heaviest songs that he's got on that, you can tell, oh yeah, this is not Alter Bridge. This is definitely like a couple of rungs up the ladder above that.
Hmm.
But again, like especially the last maybe couple of albums, because I think maybe the timing when they were released, I knew they were released, but I didn't listen to them when they first came out. And again, I had kind of the same experience where I was like, these are just really well crafted songs. I don't know why I didn't emotionally connect with this when this first came out. So that can just happen.
Hmm.
So I see your point with Pawns and Kings. I think the thing that I like about it is a little bit more refined because there's only 10 songs, right? Where some of the other,
Hmm.
especially Last Hero, Water Sky, is a little bit bloated because there's a lot more songs on there, and then especially in the Last Hero, they're longer, so it can be exhausting in one listen. Um,
Right.
and I like it's gonna be strange to sort of say it feels a little bit more stripped back. There's maybe not as many layers. I know it's
Hmm.
different to Walk the Sky because Walk the Sky had like the sort of more sort of some had some synth instrumentation going on. But also, I think it's just maybe it's the production that they used, or maybe there was just more layering of the guitars. This feels a little bit more stripped back, which might
Mm.
make it a little bit more pleasant to listen to. Um, but yeah, when I'm looking at the list of songs, and like, I mean, again, like all Alter Bridge songs, I would happily listen to them all. But there's some that I gravitate to really strongly,
Mm.
and then the others are kind of neglected, which is it's very strange, like a very sort of strange dichotomy. So the ones that I really connect to, the title
Hmm.
track "This Is War" is just a banger, and I love that. A for the lyrical perspective, but just the song itself, I think is really solid. Dead Among the Living is quite heavily weighted towards the beginning. Silver Tongue,
Hmm.
the third song, was one that when it was released as the single, I was
Hmm.
again I was like, yeah, this is solid Alter Bridge, but I was like, ah, it's not my favorite. And then This Is War came out, and I was like, yeah, that beats it. But then when I saw them live during the touring cycle for Pawns and Kings, Silver Tongue was their opener.
Hmm.
But I also treated myself to like the VIP experience, and you got to watch a sound check.
Oh,
And
nice.
during the sound check, one of the songs that they played was Silver Tongue. And as soon as like
Hmm.
something changed between the album version and the live version, as soon as I heard that just in the sound check, I knew, oh
Hmm.
my, this song's gonna just slap live. This
Hmm.
fits a live setting really well. And then they
Yeah.
opened the
I'm
concert
glad
with
you
it,
said that.
and I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good choice. If I had to make like my ultimate Alter Bridge set list, I'd want Silver Tongue to be the opener
Yeah.
because it just
I'm
works so
glad you
well.
said that because one of the thoughts that I did have when I was re-listening to the album was I bet this would be a lot better to experience live. And I don't know what that says about the album, but I remember just thinking, I feel like the energy of being there to experience the song would sort of elevate it, right? Might be a way to break through that little bit of a barrier that I've run into so far, and actually get through and be like, okay, like now I can really connect with this in a way that it doesn't feel quite as inviting, I guess, on the album. So
Yeah.
I can totally understand like you being like, oh, I had this experience live and it really hit different. I can totally believe that.
And even just something that it's just as simple as the riff hit me a bit harder. Um, Maybe just because the sound balance, or I'm not sure. Also, I was quite lucky. I saw them in the venue they normally play in Barcelona is quite small. So even though in when they do the rest of the European tours, they normally play in what we'd call arenas. So
Hmm.
they're not like sports stadiums, but like you're talking looking at the sort of scale between 5 and 15,000 kind of size.
Hmm.
But in Barcelona they play. I think it's actually more like a nightclub, but there is a concert hall that you can use, but it's much smaller than an arena. And because you're slightly more tightly packed and you're closer, everything's just that it it really works well for a song like that, which is very like heavy riff based.
Yeah.
So that's why you just. But just even just in the sound check alone, not even thinking about the atmosphere of all the people being in the room, I was like, oh yeah, that's gonna work. And then the other two in particular, Last Man Standing. We're going
Hmm.
towards the end of the album. The penultimate one, Last Man Standing, because I do really like the sort of slightly more progressive nature of it, kind of coming back
Hmm.
to sort of like that Fortress-esque sort of songwriting. And Miles Kennedy gets two solos, so of course I'm happy about that. And
Of
also Paul,
course.
and also the title track. So the reason why the title track in particular was I remember when I listened to it for the first time because I was on my summer break back in 2022. It must be, yeah.
Hmm.
Back in the UK, first time since COVID had hit. And I remember just being in this random hotel. I think it was in Birmingham, and I didn't even I kind of knew they were writing an album, but I didn't know anything about the release of it. And then suddenly it just popped up on my YouTube or whatever. Said, "Oh, Alder Bridge." I was like, "Oh, cool. Right, I've got 5 minutes while my wife's getting ready. I'll listen to it." And I was listening to it, and I wasn't watching the video too much. I was just listening to it, just absorbing it. And when it goes into that sort of bridge section, and it starts going crazy with the
Hmm.
time changes and whatnot. I was like, phew, how are they going to get this back to the chorus within the next, I don't know, minute before the song ends? As then
Hmm.
I clicked on my phone and I saw that it was almost 7 minutes long. I was like, okay then. they've released this 6.5 minute, 6.5. Oh well, yeah, 6 minutes 20. Okay, not quite 7 minutes, but still, it was over 6 minutes long. I was like, that's the first song that they decided to release from this album. That's a really
Hmm.
bold step for them to
Hmm.
take. Because they could have easily gone, oh, we want to release a 3 4 minute thing, like with Walk the Sky they did, wouldn't you rather? So that was like, okay, I'm on board with this. That's like them being bold, and they don't, they're gonna just double down on what they're good at,
Hmm.
which is being a really stable and solid hard rock slash metallic influences
Hmm.
band, but they're going to do some extra stuff mixed in there. They're not going to be an ordinary quote unquote rock band.
Right.
So I really like that. Yeah, the other songs which are there, like the one in particular is, which is maybe a bit of a letdown for me, is Fable of the Silent Sun. Because when the
Mm.
album was released, there was like a whole big thing about going, oh my god, it's longer than Blackbird, blah 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 blah, right?
Hmm.
And again, it's one of those songs where I'll listen to it and I'll be like, I don't have any, criticism of it, you know, but it doesn't grab me, which is
Hmm.
a bit strange considering, the musicality that's in there. Um,
Yeah.
so I do kind of vibe a little bit or agree with you with the way that you sort of assess this album. Um,
Hmm.
it's very hard sort of to place it in terms of I was doing a ranking because I did
Hmm.
do during the pandemic. I did a ranking which just got posted on like a random Facebook group of the albums, and now I'm trying to think now where would Pawns and Kings go if I had to slot it into that ranking.
Hmm.
Would it be better than Walk the Sky? Probably. Would it be better than The Last Hero? Ooh. I think it suffers the same issues as The Last Hero in terms of The Last Hero for me, the songs I love, I
Mm.
obsess over. But then the
Hmm.
ones that I don't, I'm ah, I could take them or leave them.
Yeah.
Obviously, if they came on, if I was playing on shuffle and they came on, I wouldn't be complaining. Or if I was with somebody
Hmm.
said, "Let's play this song," they played it live, I wouldn't have a problem. But if I was the one dictating what song I would want to
Hmm.
listen to, but still to this day, I will put on this is War, Dead Among the Living, Silver Tongue, Last Man Standing, and
Hmm.
Pawns and Kings, and have a whale of a time listening to them. But that's the only
Yeah.
problem when it's only half the album. It's
Hmm.
like, is that enough?
Yeah.
So it's. I think the other problem is, I think because of their, I don't know exactly how they organize things, but because they've got so many commitments, Tremonti
Hmm.
has Alderbridge and now Creed, because they got the Creed reunion, but I guess that wasn't a thing when Paul the Kings came out, and his Tremonti solo project, and his Sinatra stuff. And then you got
Mm-hmm.
Miles Kennedy with Alter Bridge and Slash's band and his solo project. The um, touring windows for Alter Bridge are
Yeah.
becoming shortened.
Mm-hmm.
So they used to do, I guess a bit depending on the timing, but from what I understand, they used to do 2 European tours per album cycle. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
now it kind of feels like one and a half, because then the
Okay.
half one will be the festivals in the summer, which is great
Mm-hmm.
if you want to go to a festival, but I want to see them inside an arena or inside a club. I don't want to see them at a festival.
Right.
So then you kind of miss out on that.
Mm-hmm.
So the issue is then because they don't do a second leg of an arena tour. Some of the songs which are not promotional singles then do not see the light of day in a live setting. And because their
Right.
catalog's so big now, they can't
Yeah.
play all the songs. But I would love to hear a song like, I don't know, did they ever play Fable the Silent Song live? Maybe they did, but Last Man Standing I don't think got played. Season of Promise, which I like the premise.
Mm.
The song Season of Promise I do like a lot actually. The premise of the song is really nice, and the way we pass down things from generations. But they don't see the light of day so much, which is a shame. Same with Walk the Sky, but that was different because the pandemic cut that short. There's a lot of songs off that album that never got played live. Um, and then
Yeah.
maybe then, because sometimes that live setting can just be something that will help you connect with a particular song. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Yeah, well, I'll keep you posted, like as far as my reaction is, because I'm not going to give up on the album. But I did think it was interesting that, like, I gave it two full listens through, and I'm still like just not quite connecting with this one. So,
hmm,
yeah, it like I don't know how I would rank it. I haven't really gotten deeply into it enough to come up with my own album ranking. I could say retroactively because I was thinking about this a little bit while you were talking about it. I would say retroactively, probably my favorite moments from the Alter Bridge discography was going from Fortress, which is probably my favorite as well, to The Last Hero. Like that was
hmm.
like peak Alter Bridge for me when it came to like the listening experience. So that would be those would be my top two, I think, and then the rest I don't know.
And it's kind of interesting because obviously now they're starting to release because they've got a new album that's due to come out in January, and they've
Yes.
released 2 songs already. I've listened to both of them, but if they release a third one or a fourth one, which they probably will, because it seems to be the trend nowadays, I won't listen
Hmm.
to them because I want to try and, even though
Oh
there are
yeah,
obviously lots of other songs which will be released, I want to try and save myself.
yeah.
But
Well, I don't
again,
want to listen to any of them.
I
You posted some of them in your Discord community Discord, and I was like, no
did.
spoilers.
No spoilers. Um, I'm just saying that it looks like the long form like songwriting has
Hmm.
is coming back. Let's put it that way. Even though I'm not saying
Ooh.
that Pause of Kings is short, because like it's average five and almost a half minutes per song.
Yeah, well,
Um,
that's what I was reading because I did. One thing I like to do is do a little like Wikipedia thing where I've got the general information about the album open while I'm listening to it. And I was reading through, and one of the things that was noted there was it's the shortest album that they've released, but it has like some of the longest songs. So the average song length is pretty high for Alter Bridge. It's just that the album as a whole is kind of short, which
yeah,
is kind of funny.
there's only 10 songs, whereas normally they kind of go for like 13, 14, 15. It just
Hmm.
depends. On the album. And obviously, then if you get special editions and stuff like AB 3.5, that's like the extended edition, is like 17 songs.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it looks like, if I remember rightly, the new one that's coming up, I think is slightly longer in terms of songs, and then in terms of overall length, yeah, it's going to be quite a bit longer. So we shall see.
We shall
I'm
see.
looking
That'll be
forward to it.
interesting.
I
Yeah, we can have a like joint reaction to something.
Well, we
Joint first time
could.
reaction to Alter Bridge.
Yeah, we could even listen to it. If time zones work out, we could even listen to it together.
We could. That would be a lot of fun.
I think the only issue I'm having is obviously, like, I mean, I agree with you. I adore Fortress, and I feel like Fortress is the peak. I'd probably, yeah, I'm very strongly attached to the songs I love from The Last Hero. I'm very attached to, but I think
Yeah.
yeah, AB3, Fortress, and then the strong bits of Last Hero for me is the peak. But I mean, I agree, but I'm not trying to let
Yeah,
that.
AB3, yeah, AB3 is interesting for me, like I've said in the past, because individual songs, like if you were to break that up from the album that it's on and hit me with individual songs, like I think I rate those songs as a collection rather than like if you could get right, because this is all based off of the album experience.
Hmm,
But if you were to give me like individual songs off of AB3, I'd be like, yeah, this is also among the peak, right? All this stuff is top tier.
hmm.
It's just that when you put it all together and I have to listen to it all the way through, that was hard for me with AB3, harder than it was for The Last Hero. And The Last Hero was a bit of a challenge. I like to listen to that one in two sittings now. Uh, but it's yeah.
It's
So
a
and
lot.
and I yeah, it's a lot. And you start to lose appreciation. That's one of the other problems is like you talk about like the mega hits and the misses. I feel like I'm probably a little bit more attached to some of the ones that you would consider misses, maybe not quite as strongly attached to ones that you would consider hits. I don't know necessarily, but I feel like that album is pretty solid all the way through. But that's only a realization that I had after I started listening to the album in two stages because it gave me that little bit of a break to be like now I can reappreciate once again, or maybe it's more than two, maybe it's three, because I do like was the old album, the old like vinyl album thing of like 20 minutes aside.
Hmm.
So I listen to like 20 minutes of music and then take a break. And I find that really boosts my appreciation for things. And maybe, who knows, maybe if I took that approach back to AB3, because I didn't think of it when I was listening to AB3, maybe that would boost that album in my estimation as well. But I definitely agree that, like, on a song for song basis, AB3 also belongs in the top tier of Alter Bridge. It just wasn't my discographical experience going through it was, yeah, Fortress and The Last Hero for me.
I think that it's just trying to make sure that, for me personally, I don't let my love, especially for Fortress in particular, cloud my judgment on the newer stuff. 'Cause you do see quite a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
again, these comments are somewhat in the minority, but you do see, and I don't know if they're doing it to troll or they're generally well intentioned or whatnot, but you do see some comments with the newer songs that people could be going, "Oh, their peak was at Fortress." I'm like, okay, I mean, you're entitled to the criticism, but I don't know what that comment does to like help.
Mm.
Where you don't have to listen to their new stuff if you don't want to.
Yeah.
And like if they don't want to go back to play, especially even you see even people talking about. I find it quite. The only thing I find quite amusing is when people talk about, oh, I want to hear the old style like on One Day Remains, Blackbird, and AB3. I was like, those three albums don't sound the same.
No, no, they're very
they
different.
they're
Yeah.
really not the same.
Yeah.
Um, as I'm coughing on that ridiculous comment, so that just doesn't make any sense to me. What that
Hmm.
comment is meant to mean. If you
Right.
mean Miles's singing style, which might be more what they're talking, because he has become a little bit more nasally, he's like, yeah, but he might have blown out his voice by now. He's aged as well. The band is 20 years old at this point.
Hmm.
The fact that he can still go up there, and with three different projects, no less, and his
Yeah.
voice is still really consistent, I'd rather have that than have none of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, and I should clarify, right? Like while we're on this subject, like I mean none of this directed at the band. I think the
yeah,
band should follow whatever their creative joy is,
yes,
whatever they're into, whatever their like motivations are. Like they should continue to evolve and become whatever they want.
yeah.
It's just, my personal experience that I talk about when I talk about these things, right? Um, so I just want to put that in, right? Like I wouldn't be one of the people coming on and being like, "Oh, this band used to be so great, now it's garbage," right? uh,
Yeah, exactly. Like I'd much rather. I'm the same. I'd much rather a band makes the music they want to make and it
hmm.
alienates fans rather than them pandering to
Right.
fans because that's just asking for trouble down the line. They're playing music they don't believe in, and you hear it too.
Hmm.
Like obviously because like especially from a lyrics perspective, right? Um, Miles's lyrics are slightly more uh sort of more uplifting and
Mm-hmm.
about trying to avoid, you know, quick reactions to things and, staying calm in situations and whatnot. But that's because he's in a point of his life where he's reflecting on those things, right? He's not
Mm-hmm.
they haven't got the angst that they have on the earlier Blackbird songs because of the whole record deal collapsing, and obviously he's not
Mm-hmm.
Miles Kennedy personally is not dealing with his religious disconnection, or that's not the right
Mm-hmm.
word. They have another word for it, and I can't remember what it's called. Is it like devolution, or I can't remember now what it's called. I've got spiritual de.
Disaffectation? I don't know.
Oh man, this is a phrase I've seen recently, and now I can't remember what it's called.
Ooh. I don't
Oh,
know what it is, but I'll be interested to.
deconstruction. There we go. That's
Okay.
religious
Okay.
deconstruction, right? He's not going through his religious deconstruction, so he's not going to have that sort of angst and gloominess in his lyrics so much. That's just he's in a
Right.
different stage of his life. He can't remain a 30-year-old or 35-year-old or whatever it is forever. Um,
Right. Which, thank
so
goodness.
yeah,
I, I would have liked a few more of the later songs on the earlier album. Give me a little bit of a way out. That
right.
was my whole problem with AB3.
Too gloomy for you. Yeah.
Too gloomy. Yep. Too
So
much of a bummer. Same thing with we talked about The Wall from Pink Floyd. Too much of a bummer, man.
mhm. So I think that's the thing. I will always say that Forge is the best, but that's not going to stop me from listening to their newer stuff and trying to appreciate it for what it is and seeing it through the lens of it's 2025. They're making new
Hmm.
stuff and not be like, ooh, all the stuff they made 20 years was better. Well, then that music still exists. You can go back and
Hmm.
listen to it, but I'm happy that my favorite band are still making new music. If they've got the energy and strength to do it, then great. The only spoiler I'll give you for this album, which is very interesting, is they've changed recording location. They didn't record it in
Ooh.
Florida where they normally
Okay.
do it. And they actually flew out to California, I want to say,
Ooh.
to 5150 Studios. I think, again, I'm hoping I got this right. I'm trying to do it from memory. It is late at night of my time. Um, because, I mean, 5150, is that an that's also a name of an album. Do you know what
It means
band?
nothing to me.
Okay. Well, you would have heard of Van Halen, I hope.
Yes, I have heard of Van Halen.
Okay, so that was an album by them, but it's
Oh,
also a
cool.
studio that they used at they used. I don't know at what point exactly the band Van Halen started using this studio, but they started using it, and then obviously since or more recently, I thought the guitarist from Van Halen, Eddie Van Halen, died, but his
Hmm.
son Wolfgang is a really good musician in his own right,
Hmm.
and I think he maybe now owns the studio, or at least he uses it, and he has been recording. He's got a band, but it's a band, but it's also a solo project because on the albums, Wolfgang records everything. He plays everything. He plays drums, bass, he sings, and he plays rhythm and lead guitar. But then when he takes it
Wow.
live setting, he has musicians that go with him, and they can kind of sort of play with the arrangements a little bit and change some stuff if they want to play it slightly differently.
Sounds a lot like Boston.
Oh, is that how they did it? I don't
Well, it
know.
wasn't completely how they did it, but it was a relatively small crew that was actually doing the recordings. I think there was only like two or three of them that were on the recordings, and then I think it was three, and then one of the was the drummer who couldn't go on tour, and the studio like they like did this whole, it's been too long since I did the research for this, but the whole story of the founding of Boston as a band was astonishing to me because they essentially like hoodwinked the record company to get them, and part of it was like going to put on a show live that they had to find other people to be the parts that one person was doing all in the overdubs essentially, and they're in the studio as the engineer.
Okay, interesting. I'm saying here, yeah, I'm just looking up that, yeah, the lead guitarist, he was also the producer and the engineer.
Yes,
That's
and I think he
a lot of work.
also, yeah, I think he also did. There's some other part, and then the drummer and the singer were the other members of the band. He might have also done the bass parts.
Hmm.
but I could be wrong about that. It's been too long since I did the research. So if you're looking at something that just says it was the, engineer, producer, guitarist, then that may have
Plus,
been all it
well,
was.
there's a longer list. There's other stuff that he did, but yeah.
Yeah, I just remember it like he did a lot of, not obviously to the extent that you were just telling me with Wolfgang, was it Van Halen?
Yep, Wolfgang. Yeah.
Yeah, who's like doing the whole show himself and then going out with hiring people. But similar situation where they would have to hire people to be the live band to match the sound that they created sort of by themselves in the studio or with a
Mm.
smaller number of them in their own personal studio.
That's always a
That
tricky.
was the other.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say,
go ahead.
there's a really tricky thing when you create these studio albums. How much of it do you really want to recreate live?
Hmm.
I think that's the whole thing about should you have backing tracks and all this sort of thing, or should you remove these layers, but then the live sound is going to be very different from the studio sound.
Yeah, and
Mm,
every sort of band, I think, really needs to come to grips with that at some point or another. And I know that the Flecktones, for instance, started out where they wanted to make a point of the fact that everything they put on the album they could do live. And so their first, I think it was at least the first three albums, if not more, they recorded that way. And so then they could go out and they could do it live, and you could be even more impressed by the fact that they could reproduce all those sounds. And then I think it was probably at the point where one of the band members left that they were like, well, we still want to keep playing together and we can use some recorded effects and things. And then as time went on, then they started to get like more and more guests in to collaborate for albums who couldn't necessarily be part of the tour when they were going out to like put on shows. And so it sort of moved more and more the direction of, okay, we're not necessarily going to do everything live that we put on the album, and it's going to be a different experience. So, um, yeah, but it's not obviously just these two bands that we're talking about, two or three or four. It's, I think, pretty much any band has to be like, how much of this do we want to do live? How close do we want to stick to what we recorded? How much do we want to change when we're doing a performance? Because that's another thing with the Flecktones, right? Is that they would change their songs practically every time they played them,
improv.
where
Mm.
yeah, do a lot of improv. Whereas a lot of bands, it's like, no, the fans know what they want. They want what's on the album, so we're going to give that to them. Maybe plus a little bit here or there, right? Because it's a more involved experience live, but basically pretty faithful to the album. It's not necessarily going to be that the song is going to be different every time you hear it.
Mm. I think a lot of it also depends on the style of music, right? I think something like the Flicktones or sort of the more bluesy rock
Hmm.
genres, I think you can get away with that a bit more. But when you start getting towards, the type of thing that Alter Bridge will do, for example,
Yeah.
there's not as much room because already there's quite a lot of stuff going on with the arrangement. So maybe
Hmm.
I think it could go very wrong if they start improving. They might just do a
Yeah.
bit of improv with like a guitar battle in the middle, or they'll add a
Hmm.
solo into the end of a song that wasn't there before. But otherwise, um, yeah, they're not gonna sort of change the arrangements too much. Again, I think as fans, you probably know what it is you're gonna get with a certain. If you want to see a band that improvs, then you'll just naturally seek out bands that improv and will
Hmm.
do that sort of thing. But if you want to just go and see them replicate the studio thing, you'll just naturally gravitate, I think, towards those sort of shows or those sort of bands. I think that's just.
Right.
I'm not saying one is right or what. Same with like backing tracks. My only gripe would be if the musicians are on stage but they are faking what they're playing, then
Mm.
that'd be the bit where I'm like, okay, I'm not paying to watch that. If
Hmm.
the singer is deliberately lip syncing, or but if they're playing riffs and they're singing or whatever, but there's additional stuff going on in the background because they can't replicate it because they don't have synths or they don't have an orchestra or whatever. I'm okay if that. I don't mind if that's added on top. Some people would disagree. That's fine. Um,
Hmm.
only the people who like it will pay for it, and the people who don't like it then won't go to the show. Um,
Right. Yeah, which again, ultimately, I think that's what it comes down to is what, does the audience know what they're signing up for? And if they're okay with it, then great.
yeah. So yeah, they changed the studio, so we just see if that sort of affects the sound. I think it's maybe affected the sound a little bit, but I think it also could be the songwriting. We'll
Interesting.
have to
Yeah, I'll
see.
be curious to hear.
But then Wolfgang stuff. So his band's called Mammoth, and I've been
Okay.
listening to them over the last. Because again, the first album I listened to it when it was first released, and I did like it, but it didn't sort of emotionally connect with me too much. I was like, okay, and then their second album came out, and then maybe because it was the wrong timing, I didn't re-listen to it. But then when I saw Alter Bridge on the Pawns and Kings tour, they toured with Hailstorm and Mammoth,
Hmm.
and I knew them, and I was like, oh, I know who this is. This is Wolfgang Van Halen's band. But I didn't know a lot of the songs, but they killed it live. They were so good as the opening act, and there's also a really good connection with the audience, and it was a really good show. Um, and that then really sort of again that live experience where I should listen to this band more. I shouldn't just wait for them live. I should actually listen to their songs a bit more. And then he's just
Hmm.
released in the last week or so, as of time recording, the third album. Um, so again, I've got all three albums sort of on shuffle a little bit as I've been going in the car in the mornings, and very enjoyable,
Cool.
very enjoyable stuff. So yeah, if you wanted to venture something into like stay in the rock realm a little bit, then Wolfgang's band Mammoth wouldn't be a bad sort of sideways step. Some nice stuff from them,
Interesting.
especially some live stuff, and then because they know Alter Bridge really well and they do collaborations with them and stuff. So it's very interesting when I heard they were going to go down to that studio. Wolfgang gave them the keys to go in, so that's good. That's a real cool sort of change of setting for them. So we'll see if that kind of changed the way the songs. It seems like they did a lot more sort of pre-production and songwriting actually in the studio,
Hmm.
um, rather than bringing finished demos to the studio. But I could be
Interesting.
wrong. So again, that's kind of bringing it back to sort of like that vibe they did with Fortress, where they were doing sort of jigsaw puzzles a little bit. So we'll see.
We'll see what
Yeah,
happens. I'm
two
very
two
curious.
months to wait, and then yeah, can't wait though. I'm seeing them in February. I'm so hyped.
Oh, it's
So
gonna
so
be great, I'm
hyped.
sure. Yeah,
So
I'm
hyped.
happy for you.
Yeah, I'm happy for me. um, cool. We're almost at the end of your slideshow. About 100 photos left. So is there something in
Okay.
particular, quick topic you want to finish off with?
Well, we had sort of talked about, and I don't necessarily know how much you want to go into what sparked this, but we had talked about like things that I wanted to mention that were like different about Japan.
Hmm.
And I thought that it was interesting to observe. Obviously, 12 years since I lived in the country, that's a long time. 6 years since I last even visited, that's a long time. And some of the like it wasn't necessarily like gigantic things that like really hit me. I think some of the photos that I included were like these train stations that are under construction, right? So they just um, are in the process of sort of finishing a major redo of Shibuya Station, and so like I went there, and I've always had a little bit of a personal connection with Shibuya just because there's a game that actually I'm friends with the person who translated it, and it came out for it was a Game Boy, I think it was a Game Boy Advance. Um, no, it had to have been the DS because of the way the combat system worked. It was called The World Ends With You, and it's this whole thing that takes place in Shibuya, and except it's this weird thing where you're in this sort of weird afterlife running around, and you can sort of influence the people who are walking around Shibuya. And so before I went to live in Japan for the first time, before my friend even knew he was going to be working on this game, the Japanese release of the game was out, and he was like, "Hey, actually, he may or may not. I don't know if he was actively working on it when he said this to me. I don't think he was, but I could be wrong. It's a long time ago now. But he was like, "Listen, there's this game that just came out in Japan. It's very cool. It's set around Shibuya. If you'd be interested in playing a game in Japanese, because I was studying Japanese at the time, this would be a good one that for you to get into." So I bought the Japanese version of the game, imported it, and played that before I went over to Japan. So when I was studying abroad in Japan, first time I'd ever been in the country, I was like, I'm going to do a big trip over to Tokyo. And so I stayed in Shibuya. There was a hotel right in Shibuya Station. And I was like, I'm going to do that. and I like walked around and I could see in real life all the places that I was playing in the game. And because it was relatively close in time to when the game had come out, the city actually like Shibuya really looked like all the different locations of the game. So you could sort of like walk around, and they had like renamed certain things. It's like some of these famous buildings and things had slightly different names in the video game, but you could still recognize them when you looked at them in real life.
Hmm.
So like there's this big building that in the game I think is called 104, but it's 109 in real life, and it's still there. You like walk around, you recognize all the scenery. It was extremely cool, and then like all this time has gone by. I'm revisiting Japan for the first time in like forever, and I was like, I'm gonna go around Shibuya Station because of the like construction that's just finished up. And I started walking around. It was just like it's like a completely different place. Like
Hmm.
everything about this feels like rearranged and new and different and strange. That's why like there's a bunch of pictures. I took a picture of like this sign that's Shibuya Stream, and like these other things that you could see just walking around, and I was just like, wow, this is crazy. And like Shinjuku Station is now under construction. I think I might have gotten a few photos from that. And like I once you get out into the street, it's like, okay, now I recognize, right? This is Shibuya. But while I was walking around the station, it was just like this completely different place. And that was wild to experience. That was one of the bigger things that actually really did hit me because again, I've had this sort of long-term occasional check-in sort of relationship with Shibuya where I was like, yeah, okay, this place is pretty different now. And it was fun to experience that difference. But the other things that really hit me were just like these tiny little things that are like impacts to specifically the process of traveling around Japan that seem very like procedural, but that are actually like practically very different. So the Japan Rail Pass, first of all, it's a lot more expensive than it used to be. Uh,
So is everything.
I well, I wrote this down because this was crazy. So back in 2023, the JR Pass, which you buy this thing and you specify a time period of 7, 14, or 21 days, and you can ride like there are some technical exceptions, but you can sort of think of it as ride trains as much as you want, all on this one pass, as long as they're JR, right? Because there are there are other private rail companies in Japan that aren't JR that you still have to pay to use their lines. But any JR line, you can ride as much as you want for the like upfront cost that you pay for this ticket. And it used to be that for a 14-day pass, which is what I usually get, because I usually like to stay in Japan for 2 weeks to get over the jet lag and sort of make it feel like it's worth it. Uh, it used to be 47,250 yen. Now it is 80,000 yen. It is like
Nearly
so it's
double.
practically yeah, it's practically doubled in cost. It's crazy. And the new 7-day regular pass costs 50,000 yen, which is more than the old 14-day regular pass, which is 47,000 yen, right? 47,250. So it was just this gigantic price increase that like hit people in October. And apparently a lot of people, I was actually kind of grateful for this because I got to Japan and I was like, okay, I need to exchange my voucher for the actual rail pass so I can activate it. And there was like almost no line at the exchange station. And I was like, well, that's weird. Normally I have to like budget like an additional hour at the airport to get through the line of all the people exchanging for their Japan rail passes. And I could just like get through it like nothing. Well, it's because it's massively more expensive, which means for most people, it's no longer like a bang for your buck sort of thing. Because it used to be like if you rode on the Shinkansen almost at all, it would pay for itself.
Hmm.
Now it's at a point where if you ride on the Shinkansen, you have to, first of all, you have to ride on the Shinkansen to even come close to making it be worth it. And second of all, you have to ride on the Shinkansen quite a lot in order to make it sort of, quote unquote, pay for itself. Fortunately for me, like the way that I planned my trip, I went from like Tokyo, which is relatively central in Japan, like way down south to Kyushu. I spent some time in Kumamoto. I jumped over to Nagasaki, which I got like super lucky there and happened like I didn't plan this. I just happened to be there for 2 days of a 3-day festival. That's like one of the biggest festivals in Nagasaki of the year. So that was fortuitous. Went back from Nagasaki back to Kumamoto, then went way down south from Kumamoto all the way up north to where I used to live in Hachinohe, which is something like a 10-hour set of bullet train rides. So it's like massive day of travel there. And then obviously I had to come back to the Tokyo area in order to fly out. So I was using the bullet train so much that even without factoring in the costs of like regular local trains, all these other things, the Japan Rail Pass was still worth it for me, even with its new increased price. But I remember just being like, wow, this is more expensive. But even then, right, like they also changed the way that it works just physically. Because you used to get the Japan Rail Pass and you would go and you couldn't put it through like the automatic ticket gate. You would have to go and show a member of the railway staff that you had the Japan Rail Pass and they would like wave you through. And now it's like shrunk down into just a little ticket because it used to be a whole little booklet that they would give you. And it had like a little picture of Japan and they had like this big thing with the dates that it was valid for and everything. And now it's just a thing that you can just put through the ticket gate like anything else. So I was constantly paranoid on my trip that I had this like massively expensive ticket that was good for any ride on a JR train that if it got torn up or lost, like was going to be hugely devastating to my ability to get around Japan.
It seems crazy that's not like a proper like physical card at least that won't easily rip or
Well, I
tear.
mean, it's tougher than your average piece of paper, say, but it's not like a hard cardstock or anything. They could make it so they have what they call IC cards, where that you can it's sort of closer to a credit card that you
Hmm.
can just like put onto the like reader of a ticket gate and it'll
Yep.
read it for you and you can just go through. It'll charge you the fare automatically. And for whatever reason, the Japan Rail Pass, it's like the ticket that you put through the gate sort of stock. So it's stockier than regular paper, but it could definitely get torn up. And actually, towards the end of my trip, it like got caught in some of the gears of one of the machines because it just bent enough that it was just a little bit out of shape, and so it got caught in the gears. And one of the people who were like manning the ticket station had to come over, clear the machine, and let me like wave me through. And thankfully, that was like at the very, very end of my trip because I could never put it through another ticket gate again. But I was able to just get by showing people the pass, and I only had to do that for like a day, and it worked out. But I was paranoid the whole time.
Because I've been watching Jetlag, and they take advantage when they went to Japan. They took advantage of this rail pass, and then they did the
Hmm.
most recent series. They went back to Europe to do Tag, and again they're
Hmm.
using some sort of European wide rail card, which I didn't even know existed. And
Hmm.
I didn't, especially in the Japanese one, I didn't pay attention if it was like a tap card or if it was like a proper like ticket that goes through the machine and stuff. But I guess now I'm gonna
Hmm.
have to watch it back and see it. But I'm surprised it's not like because like even in London when I went and I kind of did like mini version of it where I mean now it's different because you can just tap with your bank card and it deducts money from your
Hmm.
account until it hits a certain threshold per day and then it won't go down anymore. But they have the Oyster card, which is basically like the equivalent where you just tap, you load money onto it and you tap it, and or if you can somehow link it to your bank account. But again, I remember getting that a few years ago, and it was a plastic card, and it's almost impossible, well, not impossible to break. You know what I mean? It's not going to tear. You just tap it.
Hmm.
It doesn't go through any sort of machinery where it can get caught or whatnot. Um, so I'm just really surprised that that's just not a thing. But
Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised that they've got it as a ticket that goes to the gate now too. Like ideally, like I was saying, it would be like one of those cards that you just tap because they've already got the readers.
hmm,
I don't know. I don't know the technical details that like that might be like it sounds like a simple idea, but that might be really hard to implement. I don't know. But yeah. And the other thing that I noticed was like sort of related to this was it sort of became a little bit of a sort of like a concentrated version of some of the issues that Japan is facing for me because like one of the issues that Japan is facing is like there's a huge amount of tourism in the country now. And I did notice that, right? There's not only are there like a lot more like visible foreigners that are, speaking English, for example.
Mm.
But there are also people from other places, like all over the world. Like I ran into a group of hikers when I was hiking, when I talked about all those hiking photos in the slideshow. I was hiking Mount Aso, and I ran into this group of hikers from Belgium. And they were just like, yeah, we didn't know each other until we all like joined as part of this like hiking club to go and hike around Kyushu. And they were sort of on this tour, and they met in Japan, and now they're all friends. And I just happened to run into them at the top of this mountain, which was kind of fun. Ran into a guy who's German, I guess, who was touring Nagasaki. Sort of ran into him on the bus, had a short conversation with him. It was very interesting sorts of encounters. But then also people who are just traveling from China or Korea or like all these other Asian countries are now like really touring around Japan a lot. And so you would walk around and I would just hear Chinese and like other languages that I can't place. And it was just a different experience than what I was used to. And granted, I think part of that's because I was in Tokyo, which is a big city. I was in Kumamoto and Nagasaki during like Nagasaki in particular during like a peak travel time because of that festival. And when I was in the more like built up parts of Kumamoto, these are all like touristy places, so you're more likely to experience that sort of international community. But I think part of the reason they moved away from that, like show the person as you go through the ticket gate thing, they moved away from that system towards like put it through the automatic gate, is because of the fact that they're getting so many tourists that if they tried to get everyone to go through the manned gate, which is just one tiny little station, they you probably end up with huge congestion problems.
Mm.
So I imagine that was one of the factors behind them like shifting the way that they use the system. And also, I think they also have an eye on the dwindling population of Japan, because not only are they pushing you towards these automatic solutions to get through the gates, they're also taking away these ticket booths that you could go to. They're called Midori no Madoguchi, which is like the green ticket booth. And they're manned ticket booths that you could go to at pretty much any train station in Japan when I left the country. And they've been closing down a lot of the smaller ones and all the different stations that like used to, they were probably already on the bleeding edge of being profitable, but they've just been closing them down because it doesn't make financial sense, I think, because this is a little bit of me guessing at their reasoning, to constantly have these places manned. And so instead, they're just putting in these automatic ticket machines that, if you know exactly what you want, you can go in and buy your own ticket yourself automatically. But the issue that I ran into as a traveler is, of course, I don't necessarily know exactly what I want. And I want a human being to guide me through the process. And so this move towards a more automated system ended up sort of pushing me like into this space where it was like, no, I want to talk to a person though. And those places are getting fewer and further between. Now, thankfully, my particular trip, um, I was able to go, I wasn't far from Shinjuku Station, and that's one of the biggest train stations in Japan. And they still have a manned ticket office that is, well staffed and taken care of. And I didn't have to worry about any particular line on the day that I was going. So I was able to access that. And I went through and talked to the person. And thank goodness I was talking to a person, because they were like, okay, this train is full. This train is, so we're gonna have to like delay. Like this first train is fine. This second train is an issue. Would you rather do a whole trip later, all in one go, or would you rather break up your trip? Like, would you like which seats do you want? And like, or this other thing where like all the trains were booked all through the first part of the day, but this particular bullet train has non-reserved seating cars. And because of that, like the person was able to say, listen, most of the time, if you want a guaranteed seat, particularly on this route, which is very popular, you need to reserve. But the fact that there's a non-reserved car and you're getting on at Kumamoto means that there won't be that many people there. You'll probably be able to get a seat even in a non-reserved car. And sure enough, when I actually did it, right, there was like by the time I got off the train, there were lines of people like back into the non-reserved car who had to stand because all the seats were gone and all the areas like in between cars were like full of people. And so they were like lining back into the train car because there was so many people there. And I got on early enough on that particular train that I was able to get a seat and then just hold on to it. So that person sitting at the ticket desk was able to provide me all sorts of support that I never would have gotten had
from
I
the
gone to an
machine.
automated machine. Yeah.
Right. Right.
So I was grateful for that experience, but it was also interesting to see, okay, Japan is moving towards these more automated systems. This is a little bit of that issue of the dwindling population.
I think in the UK it's definitely happening. I don't know about Spain, so I can't comment on Spain. But I know in the UK, I don't know recently, but there definitely was in the last few years um, there are definitely news stories about these ticket booths, as you call them, were being shut, especially in stations where there wouldn't be such a high throughput of people. But a lot of the
Hmm.
time, I don't know how it works in Japan or even in the States, but the people who'd be manning these ticket booths in these stations were not just doing that job. They would
Hmm.
also, if um, potentially if there was when a train would come in, they would assist. So if there's disabled people, they might assist them getting onto the train, that sort of thing. So it wasn't just the fact they're shutting ticket booths, because again, the whole idea was, oh, everything's automated now. But there are people who can't use the machines for whatever
Hmm.
reason, or maybe don't know how to. Or again, in your case, right, you want specific knowledge that the machine
Hmm.
cannot provide you, because the machine just says, what time do you want to travel, and where do
Yeah.
you want to go? It doesn't provide you with much else, potentially, depending on that very specific knowledge of this train's busy because of this, blah blah blah. That we wouldn't get that from a machine.
Right.
But also that human interaction, which you might need in other situations, cannot be
Yes.
fulfilled by a machine. And I think it's that fight of, oh, everything's getting automated anyway, versus potential cost cutting, disguising it as cost cutting measures.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely an issue. And oh, while we're on the subject of trains, another change that hit me in the heart was I had a tiny, almost insignificant little tradition, which was after the nightmare of the plane flight, uh, landing like into Japan. I would always like breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief when I could get onto the Narita Express, which goes from the Narita airport into like the main sections of Tokyo. And I sit down and they've got this little cart that goes by with food and soft drinks, and I would always just buy a Coke and have a nice little snack. And it would be my nice little way to relax. And so I was sitting there on the NEX, the Narita Express, just waiting for the cart to come by, having, my chance to sort of decompress off of the airplane. And it never came by because I later discovered they discontinued all of those carts on
No.
the Narita Express. If you don't have what they call a green car, which is like the higher class, like cabin cars, right? So if you're paying for a premium experience, you can still get them. But if you're on the main line for that and also one of the main Shinkansen lines, the Tokaido Shinkansen, they've discontinued all of those carts, and I was so bummed out. I was like, I love those things, and it was actually kind of funny because I got onto the Shinkansen that I'm probably most familiar with, which goes from Tokyo up to well past Hachinohe, but that's where I take it to. It goes up to now Shin Hakodate Hokuto, and I was on that train, and as I was getting off, I like wrote off the possibility that there would be a food cart on it because I was so disillusioned of my first experience. And as I was getting off, I noticed someone going by like past the thing with a cart, my seat, and I was like, "Wait, it's here?" And sure enough, like on the return trip when I was coming back towards Tokyo, the I was on the lookout and I saw someone coming by with a cart and I was just like, yes, I ordered something just on principle, just to be like, I'm gonna stop this cart and have this experience where I can order food on the train while I still can because they're getting rid of it.
You want to show JR that it's still in demand.
I still want it, yeah. Oh man, I was so bummed about that. But again, Japan is changing.
Mm.
And I think part of that is the dwindling population. Part of that is probably the push towards automation, right? Part of that, I'm sure, is cost cutting. Part of that's got to be due to the like large number of tourists that I imagine could cause trouble in some situation or other like that. I don't know. I don't fully understand the decision making behind these things, but man, yeah, it's changing,
It's
and
changing.
it's tiny little things like that that like stick out to me. Oh, and I did notice, like I think I said in an earlier podcast, I was gonna sort of like report back about smoking in Japan because like I had read the statistics about the like precipitous fall in smoking in Japan, and I was like, oh, I'll believe it when I see it, and I saw it, and now I believe it because
Oh, look at that.
there are like whole restaurants that you can go into that don't even have smoking sections anymore. Uh, Apparently, like in the what was this 2020? No, 2020 looks like there was a smoking law which prohibits indoor smoking that fully came into effect with a few exceptions of well, private homes, pretty obviously. Uh, Hotel rooms, they still have like smoking and non-smoking hotel rooms,
Oh.
at cigar bars, and some small-sized restaurants and bars that were open before April 2020. And that last part got me. I was in Nagasaki and I was walking around and I was like, where do I want to go for lunch? And I found this tiny little shop that didn't have a menu. It just had like on the front door, like it was like it's open for lunch and they have their daily set. And you just go in and you get whatever the daily set is. And I was like, this sounds fun to me. So
Mhm.
I walk in to this tiny little Japanese shop, and the person behind the counter comes out. And she's like, we don't have a menu. And I was like, that's fine. I want the daily set. And she was like, okay, fine. Like, it's going to be this, or it's going to be, I forget exactly what it was. Some like meat based dish, which ironically, I think if it had been a fish-based disc or dish, the person may have been even more reluctant to serve me. But I was like, no, that's fine. Like Japanese food, no problem. And so I sat down, and as soon as I sat down, all these people who were also there for lunch, all these Japanese customers, whipped out their cigarettes and started lighting them. And I was like, oh no.
Oh
I've made a
no.
terrible mistake. It's this tiny little place. There's no smoking or non-smoking section, and everyone in here is smoking.
Oh no. Lunch ruined.
So yeah. Oh, that was rough. It was a lovely shop. And actually, it tied into this experience that I had that was actually kind of wonderful, where I mentioned there was this festival going on, Nagasaki Kunchi, that is one of the big festivals in Nagasaki. And it started out at this shrine called Suwa Shrine. And I happened to catch a glimpse of one of the performances that was happening there. And one of the things that they do in Japanese festivals is they'll go around to different like stores and shops and things, and they pay for this to happen. But these individual like performing bands will come to the stores and the shops, and they will like do a performance in front of the shop, and that's sort of a way of blessing that store or the shop or whatever, so that they'll have continued good luck for the rest of the year. And obviously, it's a way to fund people coming and giving these performances in front of your shop. So it's also quite nice that that happens that way. And I was in that shop when the procession came by and they were like, "Hey, we're going to do a performance that you've, previously agreed to. Are you ready?" And I was like, "Oh, this is fun. I get to watch this performance from inside the shop." And so that was fun. And then the procession that I saw that started at Suwa Shrine, I got to see it because they did a free performance. You had to pay if you wanted to get into the one at Suwa Shrine, but I sort of was outside the shrine, but was able to like strain my neck and look on. I think some of the photos, like if you can see this giant float in the distance, that's where I was able to get those photos from. And then they came and they did the actual performance again later. In front of the station for free, and so I caught it in front of the station for. So I was like there at the beginning. I was there for one of the smaller side events that happened when I was having lunch, and then I was there for. It felt like the end, but it probably wasn't the end of that particular performance at the station. So it was very cool. Got to have that sort of three-tiered experience. But anyway, that's a long sort of tangent. But I started on this because of the smoking thing, and it's like outside of that one shop,
Mhm.
yeah, smoking like seriously in decline in Japan, and I am so happy about that.
That's brilliant. A positive
Yeah.
note to end the podcast on. I think we must have talked about it when we brought up that topic, right? But I can't imagine, especially indoor smoking now, because obviously in I think Scotland was like one of the first countries in Europe to outlaw it, and then even now in Spain is the same. there's only outdoor now.
Hmm.
There's a big sort of terrace culture in Spain where people sit out in the street, and then you get people who are smoking. But I
Hmm.
cannot imagine that experience of going into any sort of any establishment for that matter, but especially an establishment where you're going to eat, and then suddenly there's people
Hmm.
sitting there with cigars and cigarettes and the like. That's just I cannot. I'm surprised that law even exists. That it's just such a strange. I was like, oh, if you've got a business that's older than 5 years old, then you can potentially still have this. That's very interesting to me. But poor you,
Yeah.
for
Yep.
the daily set was ruined.
Yep.
Was the food good at least?
Yeah. Yeah. The food was good. Yeah. The everything about that experience except for the smoking was wonderful. So, uh, you win some, you lose some, I guess.
Hmm. Indeed. But as in general, it seems like the whole trip was a win for you.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was a beautifully positive experience and enjoyed pretty much every moment of it. So
Brilliant.
yeah, excellent, excellent trip.
I guess
Was there?
are
Go
you
ahead.
are you planning to leave it as long before you return again, or you want to give it a similar amount of time,
I would
distance in terms
like
of
to go
time?
back. I would like to go back a little bit more frequently. I think 6 years was longer than I would have liked, but I don't know. Maybe something more like three. Um, it's going to depend a little bit because I would also like to take some of my family along with me on one of these trips. Like this one, I wanted to do just for myself because, I mean, the fact that I speak the language and I know a thing or two having lived in the country, right? Like I could get around, I can get around Japan on my own in a way that I absolutely cannot if I'm trying to escort a bunch of people who don't know anything about Japanese, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not just the Japanese language, but the Japanese culture as well. But I do want to share the experience of going to Japan with other people in my family at some point. And, that opportunity is not going to be there forever. And my nieces are only going to get older. They're the people I'm sort of most interested because a lot of my other family members have come to Japan to visit me in the past, something like that. Um, so that's I'm particularly interested in getting my nieces to come along, but also other people in my family who haven't been around the first time. Right, I want them to experience the country, and I think maybe the next trip could be that. But then again, then it's not just my finances on the line; it's also theirs, and it's difficult to make it happen. Even if the yen is weak, right, the plane fare is very high,
Yeah.
and it's not nothing, right? It's not like you're not spending any money when you're in the country. So it's an expensive trip.
And also the
So,
time element, right? You're having to dedicate, a
yes,
substantial portion of time, and then especially, I mean,
right.
everybody in general, but especially I know you guys across the pond, you don't have as much unless you're a freelancer. You're not going to have as much holiday time.
Right.
So
Well, as
that,
a freelancer, I don't get any, right? So it's an additional hit to my pay
hmm,
to, not do any work and therefore not make any money for 3 weeks.
right, exactly. But,
Yeah.
but in the sense that you've got the flexibility where you can, in terms of time, you can just
Yes.
go.
I'm much
I
more flexible than, yeah,
right,
than say people who are like, okay, well, again, I want to talk about my nieces, right? It's going to have to be like a summer vacation trip. Uh, like if we want to spend a decent amount of time there. So that's also like the worst time to be in Japan. So that won't be fun. But yeah, you're right. It's a different sort of time situation.
I can see you got time to plan it and to see if
Yeah.
everything will
And if
align.
it Yeah. And if it falls through, the family thing, then, I would like to get back myself. Again, I think maybe a 3-year target would be better than a 6-year one. We'll see what happens. You can't predict the future, but um, 6 years felt too long. So I'd like to go back a little bit short of that in the future if I have the opportunity.
That's great. Your love affair with Japan is still burning strong.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, that is true.
Fantastic. So I was worried.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think this would happen, but imagine you came out and went, "Oh, it's changed. I don't want to go back anymore. Japan's changed for the worse. There's all these things going on. Blah 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 blah." But
Mhm.
in the end, no.
No, no. Yeah.
It's
And I mean,
perfect.
I do think, right, there is a little bit of that's happened, right? I've talked about this on the podcast before, but when I used to live in Hachinohe, the first several times I went back to Japan when I went back to Hachinohe, where I lived for 5 years and had some great friendships and, just one of the best times of my life, I would go around and I could just look at the surroundings and revisit places that I used to love. And it felt like I was coming home practically, right? It wasn't even like I was on vacation. It was like I'm back in Hachinohe and, I know this place like the back of my hand and it's great to be back here. And the thrill of that was enough to carry me through, several days just in there. And even before like the 6 year gap, the last time that I went to Japan before this trip, I went up to Hachinohe and it was like everything's different. And this isn't the city that I knew like the back of my hand like it used to be. And, institutions have changed. Like practically all the nice little restaurants and shops and things that I knew are gone. Most of my friends are no longer there. There's still one person who's in the area. Um, but I can't go up there and just, plan to spend, the better part of a week and reminisce anymore the way that I could before. So my relationship to that portion of Japan has definitely changed, but the country as a whole, no, the passion continues to burn strongly.
Brilliant. What a way to end. That's nice.
Yes.
Positive note, which is what we need.
Positive note.
Which is
That's right.
what we
That's
all
what we
want.
got to go out on. Hmm.
Brilliant. Good stuff. Oh well. We have made it through the loop, so we're starting to repeat some pictures. But thank you for sharing your stories of Japan and also all the photos. It would be really nice. And yeah, if there's anybody listening, if there's anything in particular you want to comment on based upon the pictures, feel free to timestamp stuff,
Hmm.
and Rook will be able to get back to you. I noticed something actually, a very quick thing. Um,
Okay.
the thing I really liked was because you were doing some stuff on Blue Sky, and the fact that you're
Hmm.
able to caption pictures
Yes.
in more detail. I thought that was kind of nice because obviously I've seen these pictures. I'm like, sure, I've got the post the way you're talking about stuff, but it's really nice I can click on a picture and the caption doesn't take up a lot of space, but it still has information. I'm like, oh wow, but it must be a bit of a headache to sort of input a lot of all that. It must be quite
Yeah,
time consuming.
that was an adjustment. Like I ended up being happy because I didn't realize Blue Sky had that particular feature. They call it alt text, and I think originally it seems to have been developed where if someone is like visually challenged, they can look at that little caption and get a little bit of information about what's going on in the photo. But at the same time, they give you a ton of space to like describe what's happening in the photo. And so it's nice to be able to have a little bit of an extra outlet to be like, okay, here's the photo. I'm going to do a quick description of what the photo is of. And possibly in the process of doing that, I'll reveal a little bit more than I would have from the post. And then maybe I can go and add a little bit more of an extra detail as to like why I'm showing this particular image or something like that, right? So I can sort of meet all of those different purposes. And it ends up being a little bit more informative than what I used to do when I was walking Japan and I was posting on Twitter, where it would just be very short tweet with like 4 photos and that's it. And this one, the Blue Sky post is still short, but I've got a little bit more room to talk about why I'm putting whatever photo is up on there.
Right.
I will say it was a surprise when I opened up that feature and was like, oh, what am I supposed to do about this? And I looked it up and I was like, okay, um,
Hmm.
how like am I supposed to be like describing in great detail what's going on in each photo? And I quickly was like, first of all, that's completely untenable. Second of all, I looked up a quick little guide that was like, you don't really have to do that. But then I noticed, right, like to write out all of these different things, it was taking me like 20 minutes at a time to do these tiny looking little posts. And that is like one of the benefits of being so jet lagged that I would be up like at an obscene hour in the morning, just up at like 4 in the morning. And then I could afford to spend like an hour or two just doing a handful of posts onto Blue Sky because I could write in all the information.
Hmm.
So it was definitely a time investment to put all that stuff out, like up and put in all that information. But at the same time, I ended up being glad that I had it and that I took the time to do it. Because now, if I ever look back at my own feed, like I can reference all that information now. So that's kind of fun. I think there were a few posts where I forgot, like I just straight up forgot to put in the information. But I was pretty like as much extra work as that feature made for me, I was pretty happy with it by the time I was done.
But it helps someone like me because obviously I have a lot of the reference I have for Japan is through you. So obviously if I see something in particular, I might not know exactly what it is I'm looking at, and then again with the posts, you can write it
Hmm.
inside the post potentially, but then you're gonna have to number, like say photo number one, blah blah blah, photo number two, and then there's that disconnect right between the post and the picture, right? Whereas the fact you load
Yeah.
up the picture, it's full screen. There's caption underneath. I was just like, oh, this is an amazing feature. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
that helps sort of I could frame things a bit better rather than just be like, what am I looking at exactly? So yeah,
Hmm.
neat, neat. So excellent. Well,
Cool.
I think we got through all of our topics for today. I don't know what we're going to talk about
I
next month, but that's next month's problem.
exactly. Yeah, I think we got through everything for now. So yeah, it was a pleasure as always, Scott Sword.
Absolutely. Neither doorbell has been rung, and we can finish our day while you've got stuff to do. It's past 1 a.m. for me, so I'm off to bed and to rest my voice. I've been coughing a lot more during this than I would have liked, so that's a little bit
Hmm.
disconcerting. I'm going to go and rest. But as you said, pleasure as always, and I hope everyone at home enjoyed yourselves. Hope we kept you company.
Yep. I really hope that we were able to keep you company. That this was a nice, fun listen.
And we'll see you, I guess, at the beginning of December, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the beginning
Oh,
of
maybe we
November
can do
episode.
our yeah, maybe we can do our Christmas episode for that one.
I guess that would be very topical, so we could well do that. Absolutely. Um, and yeah, I hope everyone is doing well. Obviously, anybody listening to this from my community, apologies for not streaming so much, but you know why.
Hmm.
We'll see if things can adjust over the Christmas period slash New Year. So we'll see if we can come up with a plan. But yeah, hope everyone who's listened to this, hope your October's been great. Hope you have a fantastic November, and we will see you hopefully for the December episode. Take care, everybody. Thanks for
Bye
listening.
bye.